And good afternoon, everybody. It is the top of the 1 o'clock hour here on Monday, January 11th, and you are listening to 90.3 WMSC in Upper Montclair, New Jersey. You are listening to SMC Sports. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty here in the studio. We have a lot to talk about today. National championship tonight between Clemson and Alabama. We will get to that later in the show. MLB moves that happened over the weekend. We have some NBA news, NHL news. We'll get to all of that. But I learned best, Nick, from last week, not to say we're going to get to this right away because then other stuff happened.
Exactly.
So we're just going to go with this show as we see fit.
At least, and I can say this with a fair amount of certainty, there will not be any more hirings or firings. There may be some hirings, but
maybe
firings are a slim chance.
The one firing that we thought of turned out not to be. We're going to start off with that right away. We will recap Wild Card Weekend. We will preview the divisional round coming up later in the show. We'll have our picks around 3:30 for the divisional round, which I'm in a playoff pool. Went 3-for-1 yesterday, so it's not going to kill me.
Nice.
You know what's funny, actually?
Who'd you miss on?
Washington.
Okay.
I picked them. You know what's funny, though? Sean Martin is the defending champ in the playoff pool, and we have the exact same picks. But like I said, the way it works, it's a point system on how confident your picks are. He was more confident in the Redskins, and he was not confident at all in the Chiefs. More of the story, I'm 1 point higher than him, so no matter what, he is out of the pool.
Not bad.
Gotta love life. So we will start off with Wild Card Weekend, and let me start off with this, Nick, and I will obviously give you the chance to comment. You know, we're not old, I don't think. What are we, like 20, 19 years old? Stuff like that?
Yeah, I just turned 19.
Yeah,
I'd like to think I had the best years ahead of me,
I agree.
We'll see.
And we've seen a lot of controversy in the National Football League. We've seen a lot, my Dallas Cowboys were at the pinnacle of it last year.
This whole season, has been loaded with off the field and on the field drama.
Exactly. What I saw on the field Saturday night made me sick to my stomach. That was the most disgraceful thing I have seen in the NFL in recent memory, especially in the playoffs.
And this is a season in which Odell Beckham took some rash action too.
This had to have been worse than Beckham.
Much worse.
And you look at the way the Bengals have lost postseason games. This has to be the worst of them all. You look at and don't get me wrong, Pittsburgh is not 100% innocent. We're going to get to them in a second.
Right.
But and especially because of everything that happened yesterday and all that stuff and what we heard about Joey Porter and all that. We're going to get to everything. But going off on the Bengals, that had to have been the most disgraceful performance, at least in my recent memory of the National Football League, especially in the playoffs. That was pathetic, the way they acted on the field Saturday night.
Yeah, listen, from the beginning, this game felt like there was an edge to it. I think a lot of the sting was taken out of the first half because the rain was torrential. Mm-hmm. And so the offenses struggled to move the ball. A.J. McCarron played much better as soon as he put the second glove on his hand.
Yep.
So he had a little more control over the ball. Cincinnati couldn't run the ball. Pittsburgh, outside of a few nice runs from Jordan Todman, they couldn't run the ball either. So it seemed like both sides had a hard time setting up the run and the pass, for that matter, off it. But as the game went on, you felt like things were going to boil over, and they did in a big way, and it all started with Ryan Shazier.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the dirtiest play I've ever seen. It's not the dirtiest hit I've ever seen. Frankly, I think a big part of the reason why that contact happened the way it was is because Gio Bernard had literally just turned around and came square to Shazier with his head up, and Shazier delivered a good low hit, but his head came straight up under the chin strap, so it looks a lot worse. But that started all the tension.
Yep, to me the flag should have been thrown, at least just by the way the hit looked. That fired up Cincinnati. And another thing, I'm not blaming all Cincinnati Bengals fans, but the fans in particular who were there should be ashamed of themselves.
Oh, please.
For the way they acted in that stadium. To see Ben Roethlisberger go down by the sack by Perfect, right?
Yeah.
Not come up okay.
That escalated it all.
And you know me as a Dallas fan, I knew right away what that was.
It's the same injury.
Same injury, carted off the field. Not only are they cheering, they're throwing trash at the guy.
Yeah.
Listen, I know these teams
Please,
don't like each other.
They were open full containers of
Yeah.
all kinds of beverages from the stadium.
I know that these two teams don't like each other. I knew going into this was going to be a bloodbath. If anybody remembers Week 14, that's why the refs were at midfield. And here's the thing. I've heard this all morning. The refs did a great job at this. The refs did a great job at that. The one key word I heard, though, was the refs did a great job to try and control everything.
Yeah.
Yes, they did a good job at trying, but did they really do it? No, I thought the refs were pitiful.
You can only do so much, but I think the first... And I don't know if Ryan Shazier's hit really warranted a heavy, heavy punishment from the refs on the field. But knowing the rivalry, right, and where these two were going into this game, I think you almost had to take action immediately with that hit so that you can now set the tone for the rest of the game, because that starts it. Then Roethlisberger goes down, and I listen. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily believe that Vontaze Burfict was trying to injure Ben as much as just throw him down hard and sack him.
There are a lot of different opinions on that.
The landing was not good,
No.
but I don't know if you could have. I don't know if Burfict necessarily tried to land him on that shoulder.
I think with Burfict's reputation, everyone just gets that,
Yes.
that criticism of he tried to take him out of
You're
that ball
absolutely
game,
right.
and he did. And, of course, Antonio Brown is on concussion watch going into Denver next week. He says he's going to play.
I can't believe that he was walking around the locker
Me
room
too.
laughing.
Giovanni Bernard, I thought he was dead. I didn't know if he was getting
Yeah.
up either. And you know what? Maybe there shouldn't have been a flag throw. Maybe there should have. But to set the fourth quarter into at least not go into chaos, a flag should have been
That's
thrown
what
on
I'm
the head on
saying,
Bernard.
because the game got out of hand from there, and then you had the Roethlisberger play, which made it worse.
Yep. And, of course, Burfict stayed on Roethlisberger, too, when he was down, which made it a lot worse.
That was the part that I didn't like. That's what I said. I don't know if the hit itself was intentional, but the action afterwards was terrible. And then, as you said, Roethlisberger exits the game, and the momentum swung. You felt it right away.
Oh, my God.
The crowd got in the game.
I picked Pittsburgh. I was like, I can't believe I'm going to lose this game.
I know.
One of my most confident picks, too.
I had the Steelers as well.
But and I'll take the Steelers win, but the way it happened was pathetic. And going off on that, let's jump into the fourth quarter, because the game really was slow. And the worst part to me is none of this falls on A.J. McCarron. I was completely wrong. I'll say it right now. He didn't play great, but he played good enough to get his team the lead. He's stuck in it with Pittsburgh, one of the most baddest defenses in the NFL this year. He's stuck into it. He got them the lead. A.J. McCarron did what he had to do. Landry Jones throws the pick first play. This game's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
And then just like that, and you know what I heard on ESPN yesterday that really made me pissed off? They were saying, I forgot exactly what they said, but they said something like, oh, A.J. McCarron, he should have told Jeremy Hill, you got to do this, you got to do that. Don't go for it all. Just go for enough to don't.
You know
basically,
what?
they were saying don't fumble. Like, are they really trying to say right now that it's basically A.J. McCarron's fault that he didn't talk to a veteran running back before the first drive?
Right.
Is that serious?
You know what? Here's the first game. We talked about this on Saturday. And we were going back and forth after the game was over.
Mm-hmm.
I feel awful for A.J. McCarron because he did a great job. Okay, first of all, I thought he played a very good game all the way around, but the fourth quarter was spectacular.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. He was on point.
His interception earlier in the game had nothing to do with the loss.
The ball slipped out of his hands. He threw it anyway. I don't even know if he would have thrown the interception.
Pittsburgh
if he could have
didn't
got
even
enough on
respond to it either.
Yeah.
I think they punted.
But he played a really solid game. His fourth quarter was spectacular. And it set him up, I think, to have a good case to play if they won the game this week in New England.
Yeah.
He showed the usual guts that he has all the time, and he led them back. But unfortunately, this is going to be maligned, his heroics, and Ben Roethlisberger's heroics are going to be maligned by this game's incident.
One thing I did see in this game, though, A.J. McCarron will be a starting quarterback somewhere.
Yeah, I firmly believe that if it's not with Cincinnati, I think this guy's going to get a chance to play for somebody. There are a few teams who are looking for a quarterback, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go after him. To me, he almost has a little bit of the Ryan Fitzpatrick vibe. Doesn't really.
You said Alex Smith too.
There's a little Alex Smith, but after watching him again, he can throw the ball downfield a little bit better than Alex Smith. Mm-hmm. Not going to lose the game. Smart, intelligent passer. So I like him a lot. But anyway, I want to go back to even before the fumble. Okay, I had a huge problem with the 2-point conversion play call.
Yeah,
that was awful.
You know what? Pittsburgh kicks the field goal. If it ends the same way, Pittsburgh still wins by 1. But you got to take the points there.
They did, but they went for it. Excuse me, but I hated I mean, they ran. It wasn't even a toss. It was like a lateral to the left side.
Pittsburgh saw it coming
against
for 3 minutes.
An unbalanced line. The Steelers read it the whole way. You have to throw it into the end zone. What's the worst that could happen? It gets picked off and it lands in the end zone. Doesn't matter. It's no turnover. It's just a loss of down, and the play doesn't count, basically. So, or run it out of the eye or do something. But that, to me, was a huge turning point. Obviously, because they don't get the 2, Pittsburgh then can kick a field goal for the win, which they did. Hill's fumble makes things worse. I personally don't put that much of what happens in this game on Jeremy Hill. Because
no, I don't. It just started everything.
The Bengals still could have stopped them, and that was just awful.
And I told you on Saturday, I said, if the hit from Burfict to Brown doesn't happen, Pittsburgh has 4th and 8.
With 14 seconds on the clock.
On the 50-yard line with 0 timeouts. So now you have to convert on 4th down and hope somebody runs out of bounds.
And they were at the point where Ben Roethlisberger couldn't push the ball down the field.
He had one shoulder.
So he had to throw over the middle and hope they either got out of bounds or broke tackles and scored.
Ben Roethlisberger came into that game for one reason and one reason only. They could not, for whatever reason, send Landry Jones back on that field.
Because Landry Jones is... Did you watch Landry Jones play?
Yeah, I saw him.
He's pretty awful. I'm not trying to be mean to the guy here, but Ben Roethlisberger, first of all, willed himself back in, told Mike Tomlin he's going back in because you know how that's
with his shoulder hanging off of his arm.
It was a wild ending, and like I said, Ben's heroics are lost in this game as well.
Yep. And you know what else is lost? The Bryant catch as well. No one's really talking about that either.
What a play.
Yeah. What a play.
You know what? What I love about that, right, is we talked about it last Monday, was that Ben Roethlisberger challenged him to step up.
Yeah, he called him out on his radio show, too.
A fantastic job. Bryant had, I want to say, 8 catches.
Yeah.
At least over 80 yards receiving, plus the touchdown.
Yeah.
Brown had another, Antonio Brown was Antonio
Probably
Brown.
the greatest catch of the year so far is lost in this whole thing. And now let's go to Pittsburgh's last possession.
Yes.
Again, Burfict doesn't hit Brown like that. It's 4th and 8, 0 timeouts, 24 seconds on the clock.
And then Adam Pac-Man Jones has to bring back his old ghosts.
Yeah, like we haven't forgot about 2007 either. But going on that too, I will. And again, I said it before. Pittsburgh is not 100% innocent. For Joey Porter to be out on the field, one, he doesn't have to be. Well, he went out there to basically get under their skin.
I think I don't know if he doesn't have. He went out there to help Brown off the field.
Brown was already on his way off the field. That's the issue here.
Fair enough, but I could at least give him a reason to be there.
I guess.
I think it's worse that he opened his mouth, but, I mean, listen, to me, his actions as a coach weren't worse than Mike Munchak.
I agree. Yeah, what was that?
That was just tensions running high. No excuse, but that was tensions running high. This game, the Bengals were there, and I totally agree with you. I think this is worse than any loss Cincinnati has had in a postseason game ever.
Yep.
I shouldn't say ever because they did give up the 14-play, 97-yard epic drive to Montana.
Yep.
But non-Super Bowl and under Marvin Lewis, who we'll get to after our break here.
Yeah. I think he needs to be addressed.
He needs to be addressed in the way this team acted. This is painful. And Bengals fans, who I didn't take much pity on because of their actions during the game, but they cried. Yeah. I could see them in the stands. There was a lot of emotion. I feel for them.
I feel bad for every Bengals fan who wasn't at the stadium. Shout out to my friend Ro. I feel bad for everybody who wasn't at the stadium because I had friends who were Steelers fans who drove out to see the playoff game. After the Landry Jones interception, they're like, all right, it's over. They left. Literally fought their way out of the stadium. It was that bad.
Doesn't surprise me.
Not surprising. My friend Joey said worst fans in football. Easily.
That was an awful display.
Absolutely. We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we will continue with the Bengals. We'll talk Marvin Lewis. We'll get into the other wild card games. And, man, did I ever think Ray Finkel would ever come true? Did I ever think it would come true?
I am so glad that you made that reference. Oh, thank you.
And listen, I don't blame that all on the laces. Just by the way Blair Walsh was kicking the ball that day.
He kicked the ball with the laces in, too.
Yeah.
But
and you know what? And I even said to my dad, and we are going to go to a break in a second, the way they were even set up, I was saying, Dad, wide left.
Finkel is Einhorn. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. Yep. Oh, my God.
Literally, all I kept saying, because I didn't like the way Blair Walsh was set up on the left, because he was kicking left the whole day. I said, wide left. Game's over. Seattle wins. Sure enough, not even close. We'll take a break here. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty on SMC Sports. Back after this.
Hey, it's Jesse Leach from Kill Switch Engage, and you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair.
All right, 17 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You are tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty in the WMSC studios. And we are touching on Cincinnati-Pittsburgh. And, of course, if anybody just crawled out under a rock and doesn't know what happened, Pittsburgh wins 18-16 in one of the most controversial playoff games I've seen in my entire life. Pittsburgh will be at Denver Saturday night. Cincinnati,
Broncos got a pass here, man.
They really did. Unbelievable. And you know what? We were picking the Broncos to lose. And you know what? The more I kept thinking about it, this could be a game the Broncos can win.
Well, it's a very winnable game. It's really going to come down to how healthy Ben Roethlisberger can be.
How healthy is Antonio Brown?
The initial reports say he can play,
but he's going to be limited.
But it's going to look like that last drive of the game where he was dinking and dunking. And I don't think he can get away with that, not against that defense.
I said it to my dad, and he said, the Denver defense is much better than Pittsburgh. I go, I know that, but can the Pittsburgh defense stop the Denver offense? That is going to be what decides this game. Because now we know it's going to be a low-scoring game if Pittsburgh's defense can hold up. Question is, who's going to strike midnight first?
The way the Steelers played defense against the run, and they were great for almost the entire game up until that second to last possession, where they gave up the touchdown to Hill. If their front seven can play like that, I think they have a chance to be in the game. I don't know win, but I think if you can stop the run and make Peyton Manning throw the ball, I think they can win. And you know me, I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. I love the Colts. He's the reason why I'm a Colts fan. But I don't think he has much in the tank. It hurts to say that.
I don't think he does either. And I think this is actually going to be I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game. It could end up being one of the better matchups of the weekend because, to me, as of now, it's a level playing field now.
Yes.
I originally thought Pittsburgh had the advantage going in, but with a limited
Offensively, absolutely.
Ben Roethlisberger, maybe a limited Antonio Brown, no running game really. D'Angelo Williams is still a question. This is a very even matchup now, so we'll get into all that later. But let's touch on again, and before we even get into Marvin Lewis, with Joey Porter being on the field, that's bad. Like, originally, he shouldn't have been out there. But Pac-Man Jones needs to know the situation a little bit better.
Oh, my God.
Any referee that gets touched, and the referee had his back turned, that made it worse, they're throwing a flag.
But it doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me. You're a Cowboys fan. You know how he acted.
Yep.
He played in my division, in the Colts division, forever. And I know how he was then as well. He has always acted like a hooligan at the wrong moments. He has always done the wrong thing, said the wrong thing. Doesn't surprise me. His Instagram rant is one for the ages.
Yeah, whatever that was, because he's a class act.
Right, and as I listen, thank you for quoting my tweet earlier, but, it's no surprise it came from him. It's extremely disappointing, though, that in that situation of the game, that's where we're at, that took place. It's just, I can't even believe that it's gotten to that point.
I absolutely agree. And you know what? I'm not surprised that it's him either. I'm really not. Porter shouldn't have been on the field, but I'm sorry. Pac-Man Jones needs to know who's around. If he's going to go get in Porter's face, which could be another flag anyway, because the second guy always gets caught, to bump a referee, especially when his back is turned, he's throwing a flag. And bam, that is another 15 yards added to the 15 yards by Perfect, and it's a chip shot after that.
Yeah.
They didn't even have to try. It had to have been less than a 40-yard field goal. I don't really remember what it was, but it had to have been less than 40 yards. And all of this to me,
I want to say it was 38.
38. All right, so it was close. To me, all of this falls on Marvin Lewis.
Well, and I think that is an extremely fair statement.
Yep.
I completely agree. I think the biggest thing with Marvin Lewis, okay, and I'm not a huge fan of his to begin with because he's 0-7 in the postseason now. He was 0-6 going into the game. To me, I'm not sure I've seen a coach be able to go from 10-6 and 11-5 one year to 4-12 more than I have seen Marvin Lewis done this. I mean, I remember the year, right? They lost the Jets in the playoff game in Cincinnati. The year the Jets lost to the Colts in the AFC Championship game. The next year they went 5-11.
Yep. With
the same roster.
Not to mention they got 23 guys who are going to lose to free agency this year.
Is that many?
Yeah, seriously? So how many they're going to re-sign? How many they're going to let go?
Well, 23 that are eligible, right? Some of them are restricted.
I didn't say we're going to lose them all.
No, yeah, right. I get you.
It could end up being a disaster, but we won't know that until March.
Yeah, I think, I've been a big believer he should have gone a while ago. And by the way, Sean, to answer your question, it was 39, the game
39,
winner.
okay.
But I think he should have gone a few years ago. I thought after they lost that playoff game to the Chargers, he should have been fired, but he wasn't. But the lack of control of your team, and I know listen, you can say what you want. Oh, well, he said to them, don't go out there and do anything stupid. Doesn't change the fact that they did.
What is that
going to
do? The players you have on your team?
Thank you. It went in one ear and out the other.
The players he has on that team, he needs to go in there and actually show some anger and actually show some threats. And I said it the other day, if you can get Tom Coughlin to be as disciplinary as he used to be in 2004 when he'd fine guys for not wearing the right type of socks to practice, I think he'd be a great head coach for the Bengals. Now, obviously, we're not going to go in that direction because Marvin Lewis is keeping his job. Why, I don't know. Here's my issue with Marvin Lewis. I said going into the game, if he loses, he should be fired on his postseason record alone. But now he has shown he has lost complete control of his entire team.
Yeah.
I don't care if this is the team that Marvin Lewis built by himself, basically. A team that wins a division and then barely
that wins nothing.
That
wins nothing.
They do nothing.
Congratulations on the division title that you've won 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. If this is your team that you built and you can't win a playoff game, maybe you shouldn't be the one coaching it, and maybe another head coach should come in and change some things.
I always subscribe to what was said about him by Skip Bayless a few years ago. Some teams are just comfortable with certain things, right? Like they are just willing to be this good. So it would seem that for the Cincinnati Bengals, it's just enough to be there.
Yeah.
Because you would have fired him a long time ago, okay? You think about coaches, and Tony Dungy has a more accomplished playoff record than him, but to me, Dungy is a relatively fair comparison. Okay?
Put it this way, Peyton Manning's got a better postseason record than he does.
Oh, God. And I've
sat
through all those losses.
Yep.
Tony Dungy was in Tampa and built a really solid roster, right? And he won, I want to say, 1 or 2 playoff games, but they even moved on from him, right? He didn't make it with the Bucs, and then first time that John Gruden walked through the door, he won the whole thing.
Yep.
I don't know if Marvin Lewis has ever been the guy or ever will be the guy to take the Bengals to the promised land, and they have a really solid team. Make no mistake, Vontaze Burfict, the actions were criminal, but he's a fantastic football player.
Pac-Man Jones, again, we haven't forgot about 07, but he's a great player.
Well, please, it never changes with him. But my biggest thing with this Marvin Lewis decision, okay, you want to keep him fine, but discipline needs to be taken care of inside the team. And to me, one of the conditions for him to stay should have been releasing both of them. Because if you want to win, you don't need guys like that, okay? Yeah. No matter how good they are, bad attitudes and problems on the field
the locker
have
room.
to go.
And I think the locker room too.
I think to me, Pac-Man is so easily expendable. He's over 30. He's not playing at a high level anymore. To me, I don't know why he is still here. He should be gone already.
A friend of mine tweeted the other night saying that everyone's getting mad at Burfict and Pac-Man Jones when they're the reason they got to the playoffs in the first place. And I tweeted back, and they're the reason that they lost this game to the Steelers too.
Their defense is good, but it's not this lights out unit. Their offense was very solid for most of the year. So I wouldn't go as far to say that they're the reason they're in the postseason.
They were a good reason. Like, don't get me wrong, they
had a good year, yeah.
But again, my point is, and their 2 bad attitudes are the reason that you're not playing in New England next week.
Exactly. I completely agree with you on that. It's embarrassing, and I think that he should go.
The whole organization should be ashamed. I think all 3 of them should go.
Well, Lewis for sure.
But
I think the players should have to answer for this too.
I
more
do
than
agree.
one game. I mean, listen, the league's going to suspend them opening week next year.
Agreed.
Big deal.
And you know what? To me, Pittsburgh's got some stuff to answer to as well. Especially because to me, I felt the refs were very one-sided in that game. Especially the Giovanni Bernard hit. I thought there should have been a flag to at least control the game. Joey Porter stepping on the field, and Mike Tomlin handed him the game ball. Whether that's true or not, that's pathetic too.
You can say what you want about Mike Tomlin, and it's fine. You're right. I agree with you. But for me, he's the second best coach in this league.
I absolutely agree.
His team was more than prepared for this game. Okay, they had an excellent game plan. They were fantastic defensively. They defended the run above average. Their pass defense did the job. They didn't really get gashed or anything. and they forced turnovers as usual. So those are the marks of a good Mike Tomlin coach team. But what I love, Sean, was that they did not get into the fray, okay?
Yep.
You didn't see a Steeler player. I would rather have Joey Porter go over and start a problem with Burfitt than David DeCastro, who you need to win the game, okay? The players...
Yeah, you don't need Joey Porter.
The Steelers maintained a cooler head the whole night, which I love. Outside of Mike Munchak and Joey Porter, I thought the team, for the most part, maintained a good attitude. Now, yes,
I agree.
there were
a few questionable hits.
There was one or two incidents where Casey Hayward and Lawrence Timmons took a swing, and they didn't get caught because the second guy always gets caught, usually, in those situations.
And what about the fight in the end zone where they're like, and I understand this, there is no foul in the play. Wouldn't it be better to acknowledge an offsetting penalty than to say there is no foul while these two are throwing punches on the goal line?
But
to me, it sounds better to at least acknowledge the penalty.
Right. But for the most part, the Steelers were not the one in the fray, and I think that's a fantastic thing that Tomlin has the control of his team that way. And I just thought it was so much irony that it was hilarious at the time that Mike Tomlin won a postseason game with his kicker.
Yeah.
And this is the team that's burned through 4. Right, Chris Boswell's kind of emerged as the kicker for this team,
and he did very well.
He did a nice job. I mean, he went 29-30 in the 29-31, in the regular season, and he was 4 for 4 in the playoff game with the game winner. He was solid again, and it's hilarious because Mike Tomlin had the quote of the season when he said that he would rather punt on 4th and goal from the 1 than kick another field goal with Josh Scobie. I guess they found their man because Boswell got the job done. So
they're going to need him in Denver on Saturday.
It's a funny story. Right? Hey, listen, you know what?
Sunday,
Boswell's got a boot, and in that thin air, he can, put him through just about anywhere.
They're definitely going to need him on Sunday. We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we will get into Seattle, Minnesota next, which I think was the second most controversial game. Not by any means street fight necessary.
We got to touch on the god-awful quarterback play
this
weekend as a whole, but I would say Houston was the microcosm of it.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Oh, man.
They were awful.
Well, no. Don't say they. Do not say they. Dude, their defense gave up 6 points for 3.5 quarters. Their quarterback let them down.
No, I know. He did.
Oh, my God.
He did. And we're going to get to them last because there's not really much to say about them. When we come back, we'll get into more of Wild Card Weekend. We will preview the divisional round. We'll get into Tom Coughlin as well, who was expected to meet with the Eagles today.
Eagles job.
I believe Ben McAdoo met with them as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I thought I heard that last night.
We got to talk about the Ryan brothers back
for God's
together.
Sakes. Yeah, Rex is asking to get fired at this point.
Wow.
29 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour, SMC Sports 90.3 FM, 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, back after this. Do you make music? Are you in a band? Or maybe you're a solo artist? Do you want more exposure? Look no further. Montclair State University's Underground Radio, 90.3 WMSC, is always looking to put new music on the air. So artists, listen up. If you would like to send your music to WMSC, you can send a digital copy to music@WMSCradio.com. Keep in mind that music with offensive language or content will be subjected to FCC regulations and censored if needed. Questions, call the request line 973-655-4256. So what are you waiting for? Send in your music to 90.3 WMSC now. And 33 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour, you're tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the WMSC studios. We are recapping Wild Card Weekend. We'll get into our divisional preview after that. We'll talk about the Rex Ryan brothers and how long they'll have a job, probably less than a year. We will talk national championship around 3 o'clock, Clemson, Alabama tonight from Phoenix, Arizona. And again, we talked about this during the break. Nick, I want to see Clemson win so bad, but I just have that really bad feeling.
Yeah, I have experienced this feeling you're referring to. As a Notre Dame fan, in the weeks leading up to the game, I felt like they had a chance. And then, morning of, it started to feel like there's no chance.
It just got worse.
It just felt awful. So, I'm pulling for Clemson, and I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just pulling for Clemson. I would like to see Clemson win. I think Dabo Swinney's an awesome guy. Great story.
Great story. Be their first in 30-something years.
Yeah, first since '81.
To me, it's always like, yes, Clemson's the number one team, but they're the underdog here. You know, you've had Alabama win in
the big bad empire.
3 in their last 7 seasons. They're looking for 4-8 tonight, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't hate Nick Saban. I'm just tired of seeing the same old thing. That's all.
Yeah.
So I like to see a change. That's why I want Clemson tonight. But again, I just have that really, really bad feeling going into tonight. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe it'll be a classic national championship.
I at least want a classic.
Yeah, because you know what? The NCAA really has no other choice at this point.
The bowl season was terrible.
They owe ESPN, I believe, $20 million for the crap that they put together on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all that at like 3 o'clock. We'll stick on Wild Card Weekend right now. So we're going to Seattle, Minnesota, which was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. Weather impacted it, of course. Bridgewater, got to give him credit, kept the Vikings in, but he didn't throw a touchdown. He wasn't overpowering. No offense was overpowering. And I said to my dad,
you can't be overpowering when you can't throw the ball.
Exactly. And I said it in the fourth quarter. Minnesota was up 9-0. I go, hey, Dad, it's fourth quarter Russell time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, fourth quarter Russell, at least for half of it, showed up. And so Seattle goes up in front. There's really not much to talk about in this game. Both offenses, it was mainly a defensive football game. Got to give Seattle's defense credit. They held Minnesota to 3 field goals. And then the unthinkable happened.
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, with the Vikings, I thought defensively they played a really solid game. And I know the weather had an impact on the throwing the ball side of things, but first of all, the play calling in the entire game was atrocious. No one was willing to take a chance. No one was willing to do just about anything, really.
How many times I tried to see Bridgewater and Wilson run?
I cannot take the fact, from a Minnesota standpoint, and I know on 3rd and 13 in those conditions, you're not trying to risk too much. But it's the postseason on 3rd and 8 in the fourth quarter, and you're checking it down on a screen with the whole defense standing around you. And that is in large part because Teddy Bridgewater does not have a very strong arm.
Or you're running it up the middle as the pocket is collapsing because Seattle's blitzing. Like the play calling was atrocious.
He does not have a very strong arm. He cannot push the ball down the field. The weather did not help. So for Minnesota, their defense hung in there, and they made just about every play that they could. But then Russell Wilson, with some luck and a bounce and a great play and some alertness, he finds Lockett off that scramble, sets up the touchdown to get back in the game, and then they get the field goal for the lead. The Vikings offense continued to struggle. I feel terrible for Adrian Peterson because this guy just wants to win, and unfortunately it's going to fall on his shoulders with the fumble. But Blair Walsh saved him in a way. From extra criticism, and I feel awful for Blair Walsh.
Blair Walsh, up until the last play, was the MVP of the game. He's hitting 47-yarders, 43-yarders. He hit 22 in the beginning of the game. Blair Walsh was accurate. Here's what the Vikings did wrong, and my dad pointed it out to me yesterday. If Adrian Peterson on that 3rd down play before the missed field goal happened just runs up the middle, the kick is centered.
Yeah.
And the way Blair Walsh was kicking all day into the wind, he was kicking left.
I'm not sure why you didn't even have to run the ball.
Yeah.
You could have taken a knee.
A knee.
I mean, how many times do we see a quarterback sidestep it and then knee?
Yep.
Or spike it even just doesn't matter. You want a knee and then you can spike it or call timeout.
Center the kick.
Just center it, yeah.
The way Blair Walsh was kicking all day, he was kicking left to a point where the wind was taking it straight in. And the second I saw the way the kick was set up, I'm going to my dad, wide left. And he's like, what? I'm like, wide left. Look. Yeah. And he's like, oh, wow, laces out or laces in, laces sideways, I don't care. That kick was getting missed regardless.
Yeah. Just heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah. I feel bad for Minnesota. This was their game.
I feel bad
for
their fans. They had to sit through the loss in the cold.
Fans of the year go out to that sellout crowd at that stadium to sit in -6 degrees.
Did you see the guy without the shirt on?
Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder where he is
That's
today.
Gutsy.
Probably ICU.
Yeah.
But, give their fans credit. It's -6 degrees outside. The place is sold out. The place is rocking. All they wanted to do, and basically Seattle was favored, and this is the first time in NFL history that 4 road teams won on the same day in the playoffs.
Yeah.
All they wanted to do was see them win, and the game was in their hands, too. All Blair Walsh had to do was make a 27-yard field goal. And again, like I said, laces out, in, sideways, upside down, doesn't matter. On the other side, he was missing the kick anyway.
Yeah.
That's the way I saw it. And you know what? Give credit to Minnesota. An unbelievable season. They win the NFC North title. They have that under their belt. They beat Green Bay for it. But again, I said last week, Their best bet was to lay down.
I don't know if they can ever take the step forward they want to, as a team when it comes to their future. I think Bridgewater's a nice quarterback with, he plays hard, he's intelligent, but I don't know if he has the skill set. And I had a problem with it from the beginning when they drafted him. I thought they should have drafted Derek Carr. I think Carr would have, makes a huge difference on their team. Their offense is, to me, what handicaps them because the defense is really solid. And, I'm not sure that he's the guy to take them to the Stanley Cup final, excuse me. Wow, wrong sport. To the Super Bowl. But
more weeks.
That's another conversation for another day. But, another play that I thought was a critical one in this game was the missed interception by Andrew Sendejo.
Yeah.
And I know he had a dive for it, but if he comes up with it, and it was only so big because then the Vikings had to drive the length of the field, and they ended up getting stopped on that play and on that drive, and then they got the ball back again. But if you come up with the interception, you're working from the Seattle 48 in, and you really only need about 15 yards to give Walsh at least a field goal he had already hit that day for the 49-yarder. He had hit a 49-yarder earlier in the game, or 47, whatever it was.
I believe it was 47, 43, and a 22-yarder in the first one.
So you didn't need much if you pick that ball off, and there was no one within 20 yards of him. He might have been able to get up and run it back. Not for a touchdown, but at least run it back. So I thought that was a big play that was missed in the game as well that kind of falls by the wayside with the missed field goal. But it's unfortunate. I feel terrible for Blair Walsh that it went that way for him. He's a great kicker. Yeah. And unfortunately, it ended on a sour note for him. Like you said, Sean, the Vikings had a great season. They end up winning the division over Green Bay. Adrian Peterson with the comeback year. He was fantastic.
Could be a comeback player of the year.
Probably will be. Stephon Diggs emerged as a nice young receiver for them. So I think this team, they can certainly compete. I'm not sure if they're ever going to be a Super Bowl caliber team with Teddy Bridgewater quarterback, but the bottom line is they can fight with just about anyone. You saw them take it to a lot of good teams this year.
Beat a lot of good teams.
And
too.
Seattle is dangerous. I think they're it's not the matchup Carolina wanted.
I think Seattle is at more of an advantage of Carolina. And we're going to get to all that later, but they're going to play in warmer weather. Russell Wilson's going to be able to throw the ball better. And to me, the Seattle-Carolina matchup, to me, has been in favor of Seattle, to me, this entire time. But now that it's official and Seattle came off that win, I think the momentum sets them up for Carolina. I don't favor Carolina in this matchup at all.
I think Carolina would have preferred, as we segue here, to have played the winner of the late game yesterday.
Yeah, and the late game we're going to get into after the break. But sticking with Seattle, Minnesota, the one I really feel bad for the most is Mike Zimmer. His post-game press conference yesterday, I felt everything. Yeah. Just from the freeze burn on his face, and you could tell because his forehead was white and his face was red, to just the emotion in his voice. How much he loves that team. And he loves the guys, exactly. He's one of those coaches who can physically say, I love my team. Mm-hmm. He loves everybody on that team. He'd take a bullet for everybody in that clubhouse.
Reminds me a lot of Chuck Pagano, the relationship with the players. I feel terrible for him. He's waited his entire life for an opportunity to coach an NFL team. Last year was so impressive, right? They were, 2-8, and they finished 7-9. They played really well.
And one of the most class moves I saw was he took the blame for the whole thing.
Yeah.
He said, besides the kick, he said the kick should have been made, but this game was on me.
Yeah.
So that's a class move on his part. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will get into the Green Bay-Washington game after the break. Not much really there. And then just the downright, and you know what? Let me say this. The Week 18 award goes to the Kansas City-Houston game because that was a pitiful postseason game. Pitiful. Week 18 goes to Kansas City and Houston. Just pathetic. We'll get into that. National Championship at 3 o'clock. We'll get into some NBA, NHL. Nets fired their head coach. GM stepped down.
Nets fired Lionel Hollins. They didn't step down. They reassigned Billy King.
Reassigned.
Meanwhile, I was at the Garden last night. I had a blast. Knicks got another win. So we got some NBA to discuss with our local teams in particular.
Absolutely. We'll get into all that after the break or later in the show. We'll have our picks around 3:30.
And don't forget the heartbreaker the Rangers gave us all on Saturday, too. So we'll touch on all our locals, folks. Don't worry.
And speaking of that leads up to Alex Ovechkin's 500th goal last night.
Yes.
Because he had about, 2 or 3 of them against the Rangers on Saturday. Two. So we'll get into all that later. 44 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM, 973-655-4256. Here's the number to call. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. Back after this. 48 minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. You are tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM at 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. We're also streaming live on WMSCRadio.com and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty are in the studio. We are still discussing NFL Wildcard Weekend, which was a very wild Wildcard Weekend. So that to be said, we'll have our divisional preview at the top of the 2 o'clock hour, starting off with Kansas City and New England, which will be the first game Saturday at 4:30. We will get to that at the top of the hour. We'll get into our national championship preview, Alabama-Clemson tonight. We will get to that at about the top of the 3 o'clock hour. NHL, NBA, I'll let Nick lead the way with that. And, of course, our picks at 3:30 for divisional weekend and, of course, the national championship tonight. And coaching news as well. We will find something in between for that.
We'll touch on it.
We will absolutely touch on it. And again, just going off on last week's show, I've learned not to guarantee anything after the break. So
No.
We're just going to wing it.
The introduction of Adam Gase and
Adam Gase,
who Stephen Ross, no pressure, said will lead us to many, many, many Super Bowls.
Oh,
so
in Miami?
Yes.
Oh, that's pressure.
First, how about we just settle for fixing Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, how about that?
Adam Gase is great. I think it's a great hire, but let's give them a little time.
He's done a lot of great things in a lot of places, Chicago being one of them.
I'm so impressed with the job he did with Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
So I thought that hire was great, and obviously, like you said, Sean, just to reiterate the Coughlin news, he's supposed to take an interview with the Eagles today.
Yes.
Which I wouldn't mind that for the Eagles. I think that's a nice hire.
Yeah, the Eagles asked for permission, I believe. They would have to ask for permission because I don't think his contract was up yet.
Yeah.
Giants granted permission. You know what? He's going to be with the Giants.
It's a team that needs some direction, and I think that's what he brings.
And for the Giants, they're not going to hold anything against Coughlin. They're going to be like, you want to go coach? Fine, go coach.
Yeah.
And a lot of callers called in this weekend pissed that he was going to go talk to Philadelphia.
You know what? I think the angry Giant fans that he might get the Eagle job should focus their energy on being angry at Jerry Reese.
Yeah.
Who I love, right? Coughlin gave, and I thought it was a beautiful speech during his press conference, his goodbye press conference. That was some touching stuff.
Got to feel bad for Eli, though. He couldn't sit through it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was difficult for everyone to sit through. It even got me. I'm not a Giant fan. I wasn't choked up or anything, but it struck a chord.
Because
then Jerry Reese goes up there and has absolutely no answers for anyone. Has no plan. Has no direction for the team. No clue what they're going to do with the draft.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
And I got to hear, well, it wasn't a perfect roster. You don't say, really. But it had its strengths, and the strengths weren't executed correctly.
Because Vegas picked the Giants to win the Super Bowl in the first place with that crap.
Well, take it easy there, Cowboys fan.
Listen, I'm sorry. I get mad when I hear stuff like that, even if it is a division rival.
But back to the gridiron from this weekend and Green Bay and Washington.
Yeah, Green Bay and Washington. You said you were at the Garden last night. Trust me, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, you know what? I was watching the game a little bit beforehand before I went into MSG in the city, and I left Stout, it's a sports bar down by the Garden. It was 11-0 Washington.
Yeah, and
I thought, the Skins were in control.
I was happy because it started off, and I got a stat right here. It said Rodgers, he played great in the second half, but he went 1 for 8 in his first 4 drives. It ended with a punt, safety, punt, and another punt.
He was getting beat up, too. The offensive line had some trouble.
He was getting the crap kicked out of him. It was bad.
I thought a huge moment in this game, and I had seen this play happen, was Jackson not getting in the end zone. And that is typical Deshaun Jackson, not paying attention.
Why is the ball 6 feet behind his back?
Exactly my question.
Because originally I did not blame Jackson. They're like, he got hit out of bounds, fine. But then I saw the replay, and I'm like, why is the ball 10 feet behind your back?
Thank you. You have to score.
Got to score on that play.
And they had to settle for 3. Almost threw an interception in the end zone, mind you. But they had to settle for the field goal. I think that took a little bit of the sting out of their offense. Now Cousins led an awesome drive. He threw that beautiful ball to Reed, who has emerged as a stud. Jordan Reed.
Reed could be a top 10 tight end next year.
I think he's
he's
a top 10 now. I think top 5 is within reach next season. But he throws that beautiful ball down the seam to set them up with the touchdown. So now they're up 11. You have Dustin Hopkins missed extra point, but whatever. I don't really hold that against him. Wasn't that big a factor in the game. But what was disappointing was the defense really started to have some trouble getting to Aaron Rodgers, who they were dragging around the field in the first half.
Not even just the first half, the first 4 possessions. After the first 4 possessions, Rodgers owned the game.
Feeble how they tried to stop the run because they controlled Lacey and Cobb in the first half so well. And then the third quarter came, and it was
done.
awful.
Not even that, just the end of the second quarter.
Yeah.
Green Bay had shown what they were going to do.
Long
And
physical drives.
Washington regained the lead in the third quarter, and within seconds, Green Bay got it back and never looked back.
What disappointed me was Washington was, I want to say, the third-ranked run defense in the league.
Yep.
And Eddie Lacy has had an awful season. And to let him go out there and push you around, and David Bakhtiari and TJ Lang, how many times do you have to hear about this Green Bay offensive line that couldn't block me?
Yeah.
Right? How many times do you have to hear about Clay Matthews, who doesn't make any impact in the game whatsoever?
Oh, my God. Clay Matthews was all over Kirk Cousins yesterday.
Finally, nice of him to show up for once.
Yeah.
I mean, I have watched so many games and seen this guy do just about nothing. But, he stepped up. Their secondary was better as the game went on. But I don't... we'll get into their matchup later, but I don't like round two. We saw what Arizona did in the first time.
No, I don't like that.
And I don't like it a second time. I know it's difficult to beat a team twice, but I don't like this matchup.
I don't either.
Period.
And you know what? In Green Bay's defense, if there's one thing Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers know how to do, it's win a postseason game on the road. But I don't like this matchup. I don't like their offensive line against that pass rush, and I know Tyrann Mathieu out, but Arizona,
they embarrassed Green Bay without Matthew.
Yep.
And I think
to me, Arizona's a team to beat.
I agree. We've said this a few times already during this semester as well. I think they're the most dangerous team.
Yep.
And, we'll get into all this later, but I don't like that matchup.
Absolutely.
I feel for Kirk Cousins. I thought he played a great game, really.
You like that? He's been buried 6 feet deep.
Hey, listen, you know what? I think for Cousins, it's a great story. This guy was the also ran RG3. He even lost the job to Colt McCoy last year, and now here he is. He's the starter. He had a fantastic year.
Basically drove RG3 out of Washington.
He's going to earn the money. RG3's gone. I just hope for his sake he doesn't crash and burn like many Redskin quarterbacks have in the past after his big contract. So I'd like to see him continue to play this well. They have weapons on offense. Their offense is pretty good. They need to improve the running game. I think they might look at the running back situation. Alfred Morris had a down year. Now, I like Alfred Morris. I was talking with a friend, Jordan, of mine last night, and he made a good point. And he's a Cowboys fan as well, and he thought the key to the running back with Alfred Morris, the same thing it was with DeMarco Murray, in that need to get a handful of carries to get going, and the running back by committee thing, I think, really hurt Alfred Morris this season. Hurt my fantasy team too, but that is what it is at this point. But I think Morris can be back next year, but they might look at that in the draft this year, see if they can address that. But Washington has some nice pieces in a division where the Giants, I think, are a long way from being able to win it, where the Eagles have no offense, an above-average defense, but the offense is just beaten up, and they have no talent, really, in my eyes. They don't have much talent, at least. And, the Cowboys, to me, are a talented team with a very good quarterback and a great wide receiver and an above-average defense, but it's going to come down to staying healthy. You know, that's the thing. And I think Washington is set up here to come back again next year. I'm not going to say win the division. Listen, there's a lot of things that have to take place in the offseason, and Tony Romo's health will have a big say in that. But I think to compete for it, absolutely. You know me, my pick already next year is for Dallas to win the division. At any point, and if any of those big guys go down, it's over. I don't see why not. As long as they stay healthy, I'm with you. I agree. But I will say, they don't stay healthy, they're not gonna win anything. It's gonna be just like this year. Right. But going on Washington, and I talked with you earlier in the week about what Colin Cowherd said about Washington, and it showed. The more you thought about Washington's chances, the less you gave them, because Washington, they may have been red hot in December. They may have won the division, but the only team they have beat this year, finished over 500, was the Bills. They have not beaten another team over 500. Well, if we want to get into that, then why don't we go break down Carolina's schedule, who beat, I believe it's 6 non-playoff teams. Yep. And Carolina we're going to get into. Don't worry about it. Got 2 wins on Tampa, 2 wins on New Orleans. They split with Atlanta, which was awful. Yeah. They follow up with, they beat the Giants barely. They beat the Colts barely. They barely beat the Packers, who squeaked into the playoffs. Yeah. They ran the Cowboys over in the fourth quarter, but for the first 3 quarters, that game was 13-6. Nick, don't get me wrong. I got a lot to say about the Panthers coming up. Trust me. We'll get into that. But you're absolutely right. But again, going on Washington, they really haven't beat anybody, and it showed. Yeah. But
And the defense, they really took a hit in the second half. The defense struggled against the offense. I'm sorry, the defense took advantage. I'm talking about Packers defense. Struggled big time against Kirk Cousins. Really struggled in the second half. Now, real quick, going on Kansas City and Houston, because there's really not much to talk about. We can get that done in 2 minutes.
Was Brian Hoyer playing for the Chiefs? Or did he have a Chiefs contract coming? Because that was awful.
Was Brian Hoyer even there? Was it somebody else under his helmet?
That was definitely him. Trust me, I've seen him play. He's that bad. Now you know why I had a fit over the fact that I lost to the Texans. The Colts lost the division to T.J. Yates, Brian Hoyer, and Brandon Weeden.
You know, normally I give out a Week 18 award for the worst playoff game of the year. Last year was Carolina, Arizona. For the same reasons this year, why it's Kansas City and Houston. You know what? Give Houston's defense credit. They played great. They lost J.J. Watt halfway through the game, which was unfortunate. But Brian Hoyer, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions. So the 5 Houston turnovers were all on Brian Hoyer.
I love how everyone wanted to make a big stink over the play calling on the Houston side. I don't think it mattered what play they called. He had no clue what he was doing.
He looked like he had no business being on the field.
Without their defense, that played very well, as usual, that is 50, 48-0.
It would have been 30-0 at the half without that defense.
Thank you, because they were on the field the whole half. Everyone was all hot and bothered over the Wildcat play with Watt. Listen, nothing was working, and it's the postseason. You got to throw the kitchen sink out there. I had no problem with that call.
Neither did I. It's just the fact that stadium got really loud for a 2-yard loss.
What I thought should have happened was they should have kept Hoyer in and run it out of the eye with Watt and Wilfork be the fullback, because that, to me, would have worked better.
If Watt had just ran left, he's in the end zone.
Yeah, but, listen, he's the defensive end. I'm not going to criticize his offensive prowess. But
As we hit the top of the 2 o'clock hour here on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey, you're listening to SMC Sports until 4 p.m. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty in the studio. And going on Houston, again, you can't blame the defense. They played outstanding. They only gave up 6 points.
And they didn't get the ball to Hopkins enough.
Yeah.
That was the one area where I had a problem with play calling. They didn't throw him the ball enough.
No.
Because they at least let him fight for it.
Give the defense credit, because up until the very end, they fought for everything they got. Yeah, they got shut out, but that's all on Brian Hoyer.
And I know that Kansas City's secondary is good, but mind you, Hopkins was destroying Sean Smith, who had a great year, and Marcus Peters, who was an awesome rookie, defensive rookie of the year candidate for sure. But, I mean, he was all over the two of them. Yeah. I don't know why they didn't get the ball thrown to them more.
And the Kansas City offense didn't light it up. Jeremy Maclin was off halfway through the game. What his status is for Saturday, we still don't know yet.
They know it's not a tear, which is good news.
They said he's to be decided.
It's a sprain. It's a high ankle sprain. Now, I don't know if he can go. I think he'll probably play for the illusion that he can make a play happen. But it's a crippling blow to not have him. Because if they have him healthy, if they can get him, I would say they can get 75% of Maclin, right? With the way Kelsey's playing, I'm not sure they can run the ball that well against that New England front seven, but they're gonna if they could throw the ball a bit, they're gonna have a chance to win.
Especially with no Jamal Charles, who they haven't had all year.
No, Charkandrick's been awesome, and the same for Spencer Ware.
I don't know if this matches up well for Kansas City, but when you've won 11 in a row, you don't take them lightly.
No, a lot has to. I think the biggest thing for them, a lot hinges on who's healthy for the Pats.
Yeah.
How healthy is New England?
Well, they're going to be their healthiest they've been all year. Besides the guys they've lost for the year, the majority of their guys are back.
Yeah, but with the Patriots and injuries, you never know just how hurt someone is.
Right.
People are injured. Edelman was hurt bad.
Yeah.
Amendola was hurt bad. Gronkowski seemingly was injured, in a bad way. But that's doesn't really seem to be the issue. And
Brady's got an ankle sprain as well. He really needed these 2 weeks to cool off.
Right, but you're not going to know the full extent. So my question is, how injured are these guys? And they're gonna go, but how much of them are you getting? Are you getting 50% of Edelman? Are you getting 60, 70% of how good McCourty can be? Is the injury going to handicap them? If that's the case, Kansas City is dangerous. Okay, their defense is very good. Against that New England offensive line, the pass rush is a difference maker. I think they have a chance, but Kansas City went out there and just really ran over the Houston Texans,
and I knew
Brian
that was gonna
Hoyer
happen.
went a long way towards that happening.
And to people who really didn't have much confidence in Kansas City, here's the thing: Houston's defense is great. Don't get me wrong, but Brian Hoyer was the quarterback.
Yeah.
How can you not have confidence in Kansas City
Yeah.
to win that game? Because, again, and I told you this before, the way our playoff pool works, it's most confident, third confident, so on and so on. Kansas City was my third confident because, to me, Seattle, I thought, at least in that game, matched up better against Minnesota. And believe me, I was on the edge of my seat until the very last play because I'm like, I'm out of the pool. This thing's over.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm done. And somehow I'm still alive. But Brian Hoyer was the starting quarterback for Houston. Do we really have to go more into detail?
No.
That had to have been his worst performance I've seen since he came into the league. Now, we said it. We were like, well, what are they going to do? Put Brandon Weeden in? Well, what's that going to do? But at that point in the game, you're probably down 21-0 at that point. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to lose? Because Brandon Weeden's not going to give you anything. Brandon Weeden played against probably two of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. That's why he was so good.
Yeah.
And the Colts, he was already winning the game, so it didn't matter.
Well, no, actually, he came in losing 10-6.
Okay, so I'm wrong there. But, you beat up on the Titans. Big deal. Everybody beats up on the Titans.
Let me tell you something. Throwing a touchdown against the Colts is really easy.
Yeah. And throwing a touchdown against
Tennessee, please.
Tennessee, Jesus, you and I could do it better. Like, it's literally that pathetic.
Yeah.
And he's lucky to, and again, I still stick by this. He played against Jacksonville. I think he would have lost. I think Hoyer was the better quarterback to go out against Jacksonville. I think Weeden would have lost against Jacksonville. But now, a little message to Brandon Weeden. You, my friend, are now on your couch. Sorry, not sorry. But, it just goes back to that. Like, again, credit Houston's defense. They never quit. They never sat down. They played until the final whistle of that game, despite being down 30 points. But again, you got to question this. If Houston's defense was bad, it probably would have been 30-0 at the half. Mm-hmm. It was that bad. So for Kansas City's offense didn't light anybody up. They just took advantage of Brian Hoyer's mistakes. That's the bottom line in this whole thing. So going into the divisional preview, before we preview the games one by one, and we're going to do that, Nick, what are you expecting out of next week?
Unfortunately, the problem is a lot of what's going to happen next week hinges on the injuries and how healthy Pittsburgh is, and how healthy New England is critical here, because if the Steelers can get a lot or a fair amount of the best play out of Ben Roethlisberger, out of Antonio Brown, then I think they have a chance to win. We could have a 5-6 championship matchup in the AFC between the Chiefs and Steelers in a few weeks.
Exactly. We're going to take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will get into the divisional preview, national championship, all that on the other side of the break. 5 minutes past 2 o'clock hour. You're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty. Back after this. All right, 30 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour. You are listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCRadio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty in the studio. We apologize for the technical difficulties. We are back, and we will now step aside from football for a little bit. We figured we will preview the divisional round at 3:30 along with our picks. So we will get into a little bit of some NBA, a little bit of some NHL, and, of course, the national championship at 3 o'clock. Or maybe a little later, depending on when we finish. So we'll start with a little bit of NBA. We'll start with the Knicks, who are playing decently well recently. I'm not going to lie. They won last night, I believe they won last night, right? You were at the game. So they won last night. They had the Celtics on Tuesday. So, Nick, give me the Knicks fan perspective of what fans should be like today.
I'll be honest. I'm really excited right now. Having gone to the game last night, seen the way the team played, they've now won, that's 5 of their last 7 to get to 19-20 on their season. So, creeping back towards 500 once again. And, they've had a few games where they left an opportunity to win out there on the floor, made mistakes on defense or offense, but, for the most part, hung in there. And Kristaps Porzingis has continued to grow. He had another really solid game last night at the Garden. He had 16 points, actually. He had 8 rebounds. He had 3 blocks. He was fantastic. I had a blast at the game. He put Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks on a poster in the 100-88 win for the Knicks last night. So great stuff to see that the team's continuing to get better. And, you know, they're actually just 2.5 games out of the last playoff spot in the East, Sean. So I'm not saying that, you know, they're going to make the postseason, go on a run, and win the whole thing, but I think it's a great story that this young team that hasn't played much together and you know, has this young core of people like Porzingis and Jaren Grant. You have obviously Carmelo, but some younger players combined with these journeyman veteran who have done a nice job. You know, guys like Aaron Aflalo's been very good. They have Robin Lopez. Derek Williams has played well. So it's been an interesting first half, I think, thus far for the Knicks. And through 39 games, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, looking at the standings right now, it can easily show. You know, you got the Knicks at 19-20. They can get to 500 if they beat Boston on Tuesday, who are 19-18 right now. They're neck and neck for second place in the Eastern Conference. Toronto leading the way with 24-15 overall.
You mean in the division?
Yeah, in the division, not
yeah.
playoffs, in the division. Yeah. Toronto currently with the 3 seed if the season were to end today. So the Knicks are playing decently well. You know, they can get to 500 on Tuesday. Like you said,
and 1.5 out. Excuse me, 1.5
exactly.
of the last spot.
Yeah, and as of right now, they're 5 back at Toronto in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
Because as of right now, the Central has four of I believe the 8 playoff spots. We got Cleveland, Chicago, Indiana, and Detroit.
Yep.
Holding the 1, 2, 6, and 7 seeds, with Atlanta holding the 4 seed, and
Miami and Atlanta are the lone from the South.
Yeah, and Atlanta,
East or whatever that is.
Atlanta and Miami are really going neck and neck right now for the Southeast title.
Yeah, that's a big difference in who's going to get to host that home first round series where they play each other there. So that's pretty big. But the Knicks have, you know, like I said, Sean, they've taken steps forward, and after how awful last year was, I think it's a fantastic story for Phil Jackson and for Derek Fisher that the team is getting back into some form. They've started to play better at home. They're 13-14 inside the conference, not bad against their conference opponents. They almost beat San Antonio the other night. They've almost beaten the Cavs. They beat them. They lost them both times, but came very close both times. They've beaten Chicago. They've beaten Toronto. So they've handled some of the top teams in the conference. They beat the Heat. They've done a nice job, and now they get the Celtics tomorrow, who, you know, Boston's a scrappy team. They're a good defensive team, physical, so it's not easy to play against them. But they don't have a whole lot of offensive punch. You know, their best scorer is Jay Crowder. So the Knicks have a chance to get a win, get to 20-20 on the season, and you know, if they can get to the All-Star break at 500 or better, and they're still in the playoff chase, then I could see the Knicks add, you know, a piece or two. And I'm not talking about bringing in a high caliber player, but you know, a name that's been thrown around was Jamal Crawford or couple different guys like that. So an opportunity to bring in some players to help the team. You look at the schedule going forward, right? So they have the Celtics tomorrow night at the Garden, a chance to get the win and get to 20-20. Then Brooklyn, who we'll get to in a minute. Absolute disaster over there.
Knicks fans are going to pack the Barclays.
Yeah, Knicks fans are going to buy every seat. At Memphis, which is not an easy game. The Grizzlies have a pretty good team. They're good at home. Then they come home and play the 76ers. Should win that game. They play Utah at home. They should be able to win that game. And then they have the Clippers at home, who I think they could at least be close with for sure. They play the Hornets, the Thunder, the Raptors, so divisional game there. And then the Suns, who are not very good. The Warriors, I'm not going to bother that night. And the Celtics.
Don't watch it.
The Celtics to close out the month. So
yeah,
a winnable stretch of games here that can keep them above 500 and in the hunt heading into the All-Star week.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we were on the show last week, we had touched on the 3 road games that the Knicks had to have, you know, to get back home. And we had said that they struggle on the road,
Atlanta,
which they still do. They
yeah.
beat Atlanta. They beat Miami. They barely lost to San Antonio, which was a very high step forward for the Knicks.
Good wins against very good teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did very well on the road, winning 2 out of 3. And San Antonio coming within a hairline of beating them. They beat Milwaukee last night. And now it's on to Boston. So they play Boston at the Garden tomorrow.
The atmosphere at the Garden's been terrific of
absolutely.
late. The place was really rocking last night.
And Boston with second place in the Atlantic, that's going to be probably a very even game. So you got to look for guys like Porzingis to play well in that one as well. And Porzingis has really been surprising a lot of people. I feel like I say it every time we come on the air, but You just go back to the draft night in June when he's getting booed out of the Barclays Center to now.
I think what I really like is there's a lot of things about him when it comes to his hustle that says a lot for the quality of player he is. I think what impresses me is, he made a mistake last night, 2 bad offensive turnovers on the same possession, but he hustled back and he blocked the shot, rebounded the ball, and then set them up to score down the other end. I think the hustle's there, and I think that's impressive. It shows that he's willing to fight and willing to play. So, it's been impressive to watch this young man grow and become a better pro and keep learning from Derek Fisher and the veterans on the team for that matter. So I think it's a very positive season for the Knicks thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch sides to the other side of New York basketball, the one that doesn't look so bright, and we'll go with the Nets now. What an awful season they're having. They just fired their head coach. Their GM was reassigned, but we all know he probably just quit.
Yeah.
So the Nets season as of right now is going into turmoil disaster. You go back as far as last week, they lose to Toronto at home. They lose to Orlando at home. They lose at Detroit. They have San Antonio tonight, which is probably going to be another loss. San Antonio coming in at 32-6, with Brooklyn at 10-27. They lost their last 4. So, Nick, just give me the perspective on the Brooklyn Nets right now. What's going wrong for them?
This team doesn't have a ton of talent on it. The players that they do have that have ability, like Joe Johnson and Brook Lopez, haven't played at a high level, really. And this, I remember when they moved to Brooklyn 2 years ago. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? I think it was 3 full. It'll be probably going on 4 shortly. But when they moved to the Nets moved to Brooklyn. Excuse me. Wow. Mm-hmm. I thought there was a good future, and then when they made the trade for Pearson Garnett, I hated that trade. I hated the idea of it. You traded your entire future for players that were way beyond their prime.
Yep.
And, the Celtics are reaping the benefits of it because they're in the playoff chase, and they're going to get to pick in the top 5. They're going to get a protected, guaranteed lottery pick that the Nets are going to have because the Nets are so awful. It's just horrifying how bad they are. Mm-hmm. So, to watch this team struggle and continue to play like this, it's disheartening. There was so much positivity. The arena's beautiful. The crowd's great. The fans were so into it. They had playoff games. They won in the postseason.
Yeah, last year they barely sneaked into the playoffs, and they
gave Atlanta a good run.
They gave Atlanta a really good run. Was it 6 games? They took Atlanta to the limit.
6 games with Atlanta. They did a nice job the year before when they won their opening round series, and then they played the Heat, who went on to go to the finals again. They played the Heat very tough, and they made that an interesting series. They had that 7-game thriller with the Bulls where they were down 3-1 and came all the way back to lose Game 7 in the closing seconds. So it's been, I think, a good first couple of years, but there is not much hope right now because they don't have a draft. They don't have any draft.
They don't
picks.
have a draft. They don't have a future. They really, again, the trade with Boston to me really ruined everything.
Now, to me, they have to offload Johnson and Lopez and anyone they can get anything for and hope they can turn that into a couple draft picks. I'm not sure if they can get a first rounder, but they have to try to get one so they can have a draft and have a future. So they're going to have to really fight here and try and work this out moving forward. Billy King is reassigned, as you said, away from the GM post. And they fire Lionel Hollins, who I like. I thought this team really gave him an unfair rap. They didn't work for him. They never liked him. And I think he's a good basketball coach. Unfortunately for him, this is a bad mark on his resume after he took the Grizzlies to the Western Conference Final a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, Lionel Hollins will find a new home. He's a great coach, and he'll get his opportunity to start over again, more than qualified.
Yeah.
The Nets have some work to do moving forward in the league. Just a quick, you might have the same thing I do.
Think so.
The RG3 note. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, RG3 cleaned out his locker in Washington, what we think is for the last time. Leaves behind a Bible note with poem Bible verse.
I'd tell you something. I think he handled this very well, though.
Yeah, the quote is, "I can do all things."
Yeah, the full note says, people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest, sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. And he goes on to basically, it's reiterating a lot of the same things that he can do just about anything. So, good for Robert Griffin III that he didn't go out in a bad manner here. It's been a disaster, frankly.
Yeah.
From the beginning, I wasn't crazy about him as a pro, but he did a really nice job overall when it came to playing well that first year. I'm disappointed that it's come to this for him. But he has his opportunity to resurrect his career somewhere else. I think he can find a home with, it might be with the Cowboys, Sean, as the backup. It might be...
Much rather him than Manziel.
That might be a fair statement. It could be in somewhere like San Francisco, who has no quarterback right now and maybe wants to take a shot at him. I know that they're talking about bringing in Hugh Jackson for an interview.
Hugh Jackson, I think, is going to the Giants, too, for an interview as well.
He is getting a Giants interview.
He's going all over the place.
The Giants also had the Terrell Lawson interview, which I liked. So who knows? Hugh Jackson might be there, and maybe he finds a home with RG3.
And, of course, we can't forget about Ben McAdoo either.
Ben McAdoo is in the running with Steve Spagnuolo for the Giant job. Two moves that I'm not a huge fan of. The only move that I'm less of a fan of would be Mike Smith, whom they've already interviewed and had a second interview with. So I'm not a huge fan of him
The
either.
only reason that McAdoo and Spagnuolo would make the most sense is so they wouldn't have to clean house.
In system, yeah, that's fair enough, but, whatever. I don't know why Spagnuolo should stay. He had a 29th ranked defense in the league, and I'm sorry. I know that talent level isn't that great on that defense, but Chuck Pagano came in and took the 30th ranked defense. If I'm not mistaken, the Colts were bottom 25 of the league, and at one point had them as high as 10th last year. And that defense has not had that much influx of talent.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to be said for coaching. And Greg Minuski, for that matter, too, the defensive coordinator who they just fired. I think there's a lot to be said for how you coach a defense and you coach the players, and I'm not sure he can do that. This is a guy who crashed and burned in St. Louis. So I think it'll be McAdoo at this point, and I think that's better than hiring a Mike Smith.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, back just to close out our NBA talk, I think the Nets have a lot of work ahead of them and a lot of work cut out to do going forward. And on a national scale, the Warriors keep winning. The Lakers keep losing on the Kobe Bryant goodbye tour. The 76ers.
Kobe Bryant's getting hurt in 5 minutes, too.
Kobe's banged up, but he's going to go to the All-Star game, probably start. Out of sympathy vote, and that's
Philadelphia
fine.
keeps losing, too. They're 4-36.
Sixers are a disaster at 4-36.
Who's worse, actually?
The Sixers.
Yeah, Sixers are
the worst team in the league, yeah.
That's pathetic.
So it's been an interesting first half. I mean, in the East, there has been a fair amount of parity. Cleveland is at 26-9. They had injuries that kind of slowed them down. But then after that, there's 4 games. I'm sorry, 3.5 separating 8th from 2nd in the East. And the Bulls are getting healthier, so they'll kind of figure it out, I think. The Raptors are playing well. Team to me to watch out for be Miami, really. I don't know if they're going to have a great regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, they're one of the more experienced teams with guys like Bosch and Dang and Wade, who still has it. Clearly, he's playing great again. Yeah. Bosch is having a great season. They drafted Justice Winslow. He's played really well. The Heat are inconsistent, but I think they're a dangerous team come playoff time because they know how to handle these situations, and I wouldn't rule out them going after a star at the deadline. Pat Riley loves to make a move and loves to wheel and deal. He wants to try and sign Kevin Durant in the offseason. So Pat Riley might pursue some more star caliber talent to go with guys like Dragic and Wade and Bosch as the season goes on. So Miami's dangerous, and as the season progresses, the only thing that hasn't changed is the Warriors just keep winning at 35-2.
Yeah, the Warriors have just been
the wrecking crew. Oh my God.
There's really no words for the performance they put up this year. With guys like Curry and all those guys, to just be playing the way they are. And actually, what is their actual record? I'm trying to take a look at it right now. 35-2.
Yeah, 35-2. 1 through 5 in the West is pretty solid.
They're undefeated at home at 17-0. They've won 6 straight.
They're 18-2 on the road.
Won 9 in their last 10.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Golden State obviously is a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. I expect them back in the NBA Finals this year.
Me too. You got the Spurs playing great as usual.
Spurs are playing great. They're probably their biggest test.
The Thunder are back on track with Durant back and Westbrook healthy. They're dangerous.
Dallas is in the thick of things, sort of.
You got the Mavericks. You got the Clippers, the Clippers have found themselves again. The Mavericks are getting better mostly because they're getting healthier. They're getting Parsons back. Deron Williams is playing better. So the Mavericks are a dangerous team. But what is ironic to me is in the East, we don't have a single playoff team under 500, right? And in the West, last year the 8th seed was New Orleans, who finished 10 games over, and Dallas was the 7 at 15 over. Whereas if they were in the Eastern Conference, Dallas and New Orleans would have been the 4 and 5 seed. So the East has always been so weak, but the East this year is the better conference. You've got Utah at 17 and 20, and Houston at 19 and 19 is the 7 and 8.
Yeah, we remember years prior where it was like you go into the NBA Finals and you would bet on the West just on, one, they've had the harder schedules.
Right.
Two, they've had
Deeper
better
conference.
better postseason performances, and they've owned the East all year, especially, for example, Golden State against Cleveland, or you have
Denver,
San Antonio over Miami, all those teams.
Denver is 14 and 24, and they're 3.5 out of the last playoff spot. So the West is kind of in a down period, a down year. So, even New Orleans, who is 11 and 25 and just got off to such an awful start, they're 5 games back.
Yeah.
So, it's not over for anyone really but the Lakers, and the Lakers want it to be over.
Yeah.
They want draft picks. Though I think the Suns do as well, really. They're kind of moving on for the picks, and the Timberwolves too. But after that, Sacramento, Portland, Denver are kind of still in this, and New Orleans as well. So I'm sure they'll try and compete. I still think we'll probably end up with the same teams. Maybe the Jazz don't make it, but outside of that, the Warriors will have the pick of the litter when it comes to playing bad teams in round one. They will probably be able to just take this series off and coast when they get there.
We'll take a quick break here. Coming up, we'll get into a little bit of NHL. We have our national championship preview in about 10 or 15 minutes or so. We have our picks at 3:30, which include Clemson, Alabama as well. We'll preview divisional weekend, which comes up on Saturday. All that and more here on SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. Join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty, back after this. All right, 52 minutes past the 2 o'clock hour. You're tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCRadio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty here. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. So we talked Wild Card Weekend. We talked Divisional Weekend later on. National Championship preview in a couple minutes. Before we do that, let's get into a little bit of some NHL. And Nick, you came in here earlier today. You were a little annoyed by the Rangers' performance on Saturday. Rangers will be at home tonight at the Garden against Boston. And you know what? From where the Rangers started this year, we'll start with them, to where they are now. Nick, give me the Ranger fan perspective. What are you feeling about this right now?
It's a disappointing, last set of games. They've struggled. They're 4-5-1 in the last 10. Their performances have been inconsistent. They can't give you a full 60 minutes of play. As usual, these are not anything new, but typically they play good enough defense that they control the score and keep the game close, and then they win it. And now they're at 22-14-5 after having such a great record out of the gate. It's been a struggle of late. Offensively, outside of Matt Zuccarello and Derek Brassard, to me, I don't know if really anyone's doing that much offensively. Derek Stepan is being Derek Stepan, frankly. He is just being his usual inconsistent hit-and-miss self. It's been a disappointing season for the most part. It's really been difficult to sit through at times. Games haven't been fun. They've been pretty painful at times. They lost to Washington a few weeks ago. Was it 7-3? Which is not like them.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's work to be done here. Now, would it surprise me if this team came out in the second half and went on another one of those crazy runs where they reel off a bunch of wins and they get crazy hot going into the postseason and feel like they can be the favorite again? No. Do I expect it? No. I don't think they will. I think this is probably where they are. I think a lot of things have been at play here with the struggles lately. I think the playing 76 playoff games over the last 4 years is a big. 5 years is a big reason why, because that's just very taxing and it's tough to keep going and going and going like that. It's almost a full nother season they've played. I think so. I think fatigue is becoming a bit of an issue. Inconsistent play, defensive mistakes. The injuries haven't helped at times, but you got Kevin Hayes, who to me hasn't played well all year after having such a good year last year. Chris Kreider hasn't scored. He's played hard, but he hasn't been scoring, and that's a problem as well. So there's as I said, a lot of work to be done for the Rangers, and I think there might even be a trade in the works eventually of some of these big salary contracts to move out and bring in some new players. So, disappointing to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. just from where they started, I believe they were like 19-3 when they first started.
They were, I want to say, the best record they had out of the gate was like 16-5-2, or it might not have been 16, 14 or something like that. But they haven't won much lately.
It was a very, very, very good record.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll say that. The good news for the Rangers is they've kind of crawled back into the division since we last been on there in second place. The bad news is they are neck and neck with the Islanders and the Devils.
And the Penguins, too, at 45 points. Can't even rule out the Flyers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Devils, have been playing really good hockey since, the Rangers have really started to decline. The Devils have been crawling their way back in. They're currently fourth place. And, give them credit from the season they had last year, changing ownership, changing coaches. For them to be in the thick of things, it's kind of what everybody wanted. But, as for the Devils fan perspective or for the Devils coaches or players, they're not done yet.
No, this is, I think, the step one of a rebuild process, to be honest. This team has flaws. They don't score much. That's really their biggest problem. They They've scored 97 goals as a team and given up 102.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
But they're 21-17.
Yeah, where the Islanders have scored 114, Rangers 121, and so on.
Yeah, so, the Devils have done a nice job. They've battled. They've played hard. They have to play a scrappy style and get good goaltending. So far, they have been able to do that, but I don't know if they could sustain the whole season that way. I do think if they're in it at the deadline, they will, make a run at it and try and bring in some players.
Yeah, you look at teams who have scored more than the Devils. Look at 7th place Carolina, 8th place Columbus,
right?
Toronto, Buffalo. All these teams with the bottom of their divisions have scored more than the Devils.
Yeah.
Buffalo is actually neck and neck with them, and Buffalo's in last place in the Atlantic.
A big testament to how well Corey Schneider has played for the Devils. So they're hanging in there, and they're playing tough, but it's going to be difficult to do this all year long. So it's gonna have to come down to getting some additions. And you look at the bottom of this league, you have Buffalo. I don't think they're going to really be sellers, though. They don't have assets to trade, to sell. Toronto, I think, would probably be lean towards selling off pieces of their team. They're not quite out of it. They're at 39 points, which has them in their division. They're 8 points out of the last playoff spot, so they're not out of it. If they go on a run before the deadline, then they could go for it. But I wouldn't count them in. You have Columbus, who is just awful and will probably look to move more pieces, as they traded Ryan Johansson the other day. Winnipeg, not really sellers, but looking to take a step sideways. And Edmonton's not really a seller. And because the Pacific Division is so bad, San Jose and Calgary, despite being around 500, are more than in this thing. Mm-hmm. And Vancouver has a playoff spot just because they have 10 ties. So the 10 extra points are huge for them. The Devils might be able to pick up some players here along the way. I know they've talked a lot about James Van Riemsdyk from the Maple Leafs. He's a local guy. He's from, I want to say, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So I think that would be pretty cool for them to bring him in. You look around the rest of the league, Sean, and obviously the big headline from the weekend was Alex Ovechkin's 500th career goal. A player who, if I've always respected, I was thrilled for him.
498 and 499 were scored against the Rangers on Saturday. Yep. So, and the Rangers let that one slip away, too. They had the lead. They gave it up, came back.
They enjoyed torturing me, Sean. One day they're going to put me in the hospital.
Yeah, and then they blew it in overtime.
Yeah, but, Alex Ovechkin gets the 500th goal. Great for him. His prolific career. He's been an unbelievable player.
They said, I didn't see it, but they said that his team mobbed him, and they gave him the ice.
They did. They ran off the bench, and they mobbed him on the ice. And then he took a lap around the rink, and the fans threw him, hats and stuff. It was really great.
Which is nice, for both the Capitals and the visitors. I don't know who they were playing.
They were playing. I don't remember who they were. They beat him 7-1. Whoever it was.
I just saw it.
They showed the respect for it.
Yeah, they got off the ice, which was nice.
Yeah. And Ovechkin deserves it. He's a fantastic player. He's a real character. He's a funny guy. So good for him. The next player to get to 500 will probably be Marian Hossa from the Blackhawks. He's at 493 right now. Patrick Marleau has 470, but he's kind of in limbo and not playing great, so he probably won't make it this year. But Ovechkin gets to 500 in 800 games. That is unbelievable.
It's a story mark career.
Yeah, what a number, and all that's left for him is he's lost the gold medal a few times at the Olympics, but he what's eluded him is the Stanley Cup. And Washington at 32-7-3
They're in
looks
position to go
very
get it.
good. They get a great goaltending from Braden Holtby. Really, they've been impressive. I still think that they can be beaten in the playoffs only because they have some demons in the playoffs. That's really, to me, the only thing that can stop the Capitals is the Capitals. Mm-hmm. They have a history of losing in the postseason, so that is my concern for them. But
stopped them last year.
Exactly, but they're dangerous right now. The Florida Panthers have won 12 straight with Roberto Luongo, Jonathan Huberdeau's playing really well. The Red Wings have found their groove, as usual. You never expect anything less from the boys in Hockey Town.
And you look at Florida real quick. I'm just looking at some of their records. They don't even really have an advantage in where they play. I mean, they have an advantage.
They're 13-6-2 at home and away, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like you can't beat them at home. You can't beat them on the road. It doesn't matter.
They're playing really well. Roberto Luongo's got it going again. Montreal, after that blistering start, 9-0, has just dropped off a cliff. They're 23-17.
They've lost 7 of their last 10.
Doesn't help to have no Carey Price, but they're a disaster. The Bruins have had their fair share of issues, but they're hanging in there in that 4th spot in their division.
You hope the Rangers can stop that tonight.
Yes, and then in the Central, and this is the division that's the class of the league, the Stars at 29-11-4. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10, so kind of middling play. But 62 points on the season, still playing well, definitely bound for the postseason. That's not even a question.
Scored 149 goals this year, so they score a lot.
Yes, they're an offensive-minded team. That's the problem. Their defense doesn't wow you, though, and their goaltending is a question.
No,
that's the issue.
Their problem.
The biggest thing that I see right now across the league is the Blackhawks are finding their stride. Yeah. They are, after kind of working out the kinks, and they're 18-5-1 at home. As usual, they're great at the United Center, and if you give them home ice at the Madhouse on Madison, they're impossible to handle. Patrick Kane's been great.
When we interviewed Dan Rosen back in November,
Yep.
I had a question where what's the deal with Chicago? I believe they were in 7th place at the time in the Central when we had interviewed him. But the one thing that did not change was they knew how to play at home.
Right, and he said, exactly. He had said to us, they're great at home, and they're so well coached, and they have so much experience that they will find their way. And Dan was absolutely correct. The Blackhawks have found their stride. Artemi Panarin's developed wonderfully. They've gotten great play from Kane, Taves. The usual cast of characters have been awesome. Never changes there. Really almost taking on a Patriots vibe at this point because it's just consistency. Every year, playoffs, winning games, winning postseason series, championships. It's really impressive to watch.
Yep.
The Blues are still playing well, but they've got some flaws of their own. The Wild are in the postseason as well. As usual, they're another team that always hangs around. They're a tough team to beat. They're 22-12-8 with 52 points. They'd be in second place in the Metro. They'd be in second place at the Atlantic. They'd be in second place by a lot in the Pacific. So they're a victim of how good their division is, and the same can be said for the Blues. Nashville made that big move by bringing in Ryan Johansson, and if he can recover his form from last year, the Predators can get back on track and make a run here. Even Colorado's not out of this at all. Their offense is dynamic. But as you can tell, Sean, if you see the numbers, they got 125 goals for, but 1123 against. So their defense is their Achilles heel.
Their defense is not good.
A team to watch out for in the Pacific is Calgary. They're red hot. They've kind of got it going again here. I know that they're only 5-5 in their last 10, but I do believe they've won 3 of the last 4, and they're starting to find their stride.
The problem is that their road record speaks for itself.
They're
6-11 and
terrible away from home.
Terrible.
Yeah. Arizona's an impressive team. They had the 2nd pick in the draft this past year. So many young players. They're doing a fantastic job. I'm sorry, the 3rd pick in the draft. They're winning a lot of games, and Max Domi, Anthony Duclair, who they acquired from the Rangers, is getting it done. They're 7-1-2 in the last 10, so they're dangerous. Yeah. They know how good the Kings are, as always.
Yeah, they're also at the pinnacle of the fact that the division is not overpowering.
Right.
Los Angeles is 26-12. Vancouver's at 500 in 3rd place.
LA is running away with the division.
Yeah.
Vancouver is only in, and this is one of those things that's a sticking point with fans and members of the media in the league, is that the league gives out 1 point for going to overtime. Mm-hmm. And Vancouver's done it 10 times. If you took the 10 points away, they have, they have 32 points. I'm sorry, that was really bad. I'm terrible at math for those listening. But anyway, they would be in dead last in their division.
You only got to take it once at Montclair.
I know, exactly. Thank God. But they'd be in dead last. And so for me, this is one of those cases where the points benefit someone that maybe probably shouldn't have them. So overall the league has been interesting. There's a lot of parity. I would say really it's a down year, but the Stanley Cup playoffs are always great. There's usually an upset or two in each round. So
one or two.
Well, I mean, you don't get all of them, but
right.
Generally a 4 can beat a 1, and so we'll see as we go.
Beat a 1.
I think there might be some turnover in roster for the Rangers. The Islanders, they don't really have that many movable pieces, so they're probably sticking with it. And the Devils are going to be buyers, I would say, come deadline day.
As we at the top of the 3 o'clock hour, you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, New Jersey. You're listening to SMC Sports last hour until 4 p.m. We have National Championship to get to. We have NFL picks to get to, as well as our picks for tonight's game as well. But before we go to the break, you're absolutely right. And going back on Arizona, again, they're at the pinnacle of just that the Pacific is not overpowering.
Yeah.
You said it with Vancouver. If they don't get those 10 overtime games, win or lose, doesn't matter. They're dead last in the Pacific.
I mean, L.A. is cruising to the division championship, and they have a very good team.
And it's their even year, so they're probably going to beat the
Islanders.
They're
the San Francisco Giants of the NHL.
Except they beat the New York teams in the Stanley Cup finals.
Yeah, so next will be the Islanders.
Next will be the Islanders to go to the final and lose.
Exactly. The Kings are playing well. They made an interesting trade where they moved a couple prospects to the Flyers for Vinny LeCavalier, who's way past his prime. If you remember him with the Lightning, he was a superstar there, but he's pushing 40 near the end of the line. And Luke Schenn, he's a decent defenseman, probably really a number 6 defenseman, but they brought him in for the purposes of filling in for the injured Matt Green for now, and then they'll figure it out where they go from there. So the Kings are playing well. I thought the Flyers actually did great. I thought the Flyers won that trade, to be honest, not because of what they got back, but because they cleared. I believe they're paying Schenn $5 million a year, and LeCavalier is getting a little over $7.5 million. So the Flyers, with the dynamic Claude Giroux and how good Voracek is and how talented Simmons is, and they're getting better goaltending, they could be buyers at the deadline because they're 43 points right now. They're not out of it. If they hang in there, keep playing, they got some good young guys like Shane Gostisbehere and some other talented young players helping them out this year. They could be in the race and be buyers, especially by opening up that cap space.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's January, so what? There's still a lot of hockey to be played. You got the playoffs in April. Yeah, the Rangers are struggling right now. The Devils are on their way up, but you know what? One little spark can change everything. Like we said, the Rangers have went on going into the second half, dominating the second half and get a good seed in the playoffs. Do I think it's going to happen this year? Probably not. I expect them to make the playoffs, but I expect them to be right where they are right now.
Right.
But going off before we go to the break, Nick, who's your team to watch in the second half?
Well, let's see. Let's look at the standings here, see who's close. I would say a team to watch out for might be the Flyers because they're starting to play better and they have a great offensive team. So they're dangerous. I would also say Calgary because they're starting to find their stride again and get back after it. But before we go to break, I know we had mentioned the James Van Riemsdyk situation with the Leafs, and I was looking for his contract here because the Devils have about $7 million in cap space available to them. And just to see some players that the Devils could be interested in. He makes 4.7 this year, Sean, and the Devils have $7 million in available cap space. So there's a couple players the Devils could take on just via trade. The Rangers don't have much cap space at all, so I don't think the Rangers. I think for the Rangers to move for a player, it's going to be maybe trading Keith Yandle. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season.
Right.
And so I don't think they can come to an agreement on a contract extension, so I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded. That would allow the Rangers to bring back some talent via the deal. Like I said, though, the Islanders are the only one of the locals to me that I don't see making any major moves or making a move to bring in a big-time player because they're in decent cap standing, but they don't have a ton of movable players they want to give up, So it'll be interesting as we near the deadline. It's earlier this year. It's at the end of February. It's usually at the end of March. So there's going to be some decisions to be made. And, like I said, Toronto is not out of it. You have Ottawa, who's not out of it. You got the Flyers, Carolina, some teams that might be, leaning towards being a seller come deadline day. If they play well heading into that stretch, then they can go for it, and make a move. But it's going to, like I said, it's going to be weeded out in the next few days.
Absolutely. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will preview the national championship tonight between Clemson and Alabama. We'll get to that at the end of the break. We will touch on that and give our picks for that as well around 3:30. We will preview the divisional round at 3:30 as well as give our picks to that as well. 9 minutes past 3 o'clock hour. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty on SMC Sports on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCRadio.com, and on the Live 365 app. We are back after this.
Hi, this is Ed Helvey, founder of Montclair State Radio way back in 1966. And you're listening to 90.3 FM WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Still the voice of Montclair State.
Makes you feel happy like an old-time movie. I'll tell you about the magic and the free your soul, but it's like
All right, 16 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour. You're tuned in to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty in the studios. We just got done with NHL and NBA. We have recapped Wild Card Weekend, which was very wild to say the least. So now we have the national championship tonight between number 1 Clemson and number 2 Alabama. And Nick, for the bowl season to have been as bad as it has, to the college football playoff to be as bad as it has, the NCAA has no choice but to hope for an instant classic tonight.
Yeah.
Clemson wins, Alabama wins. I really don't care as long as it's a good game. Like the one at the Rose Bowl a few years ago between Florida State and Auburn, I thought was great.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, the matchup was okay, but in the end, Ohio State really ran with it. I want one of these games where it comes down to literally like Pittsburgh-Cincinnati, the last minute, but without the street fight in it.
Yes.
That's the game I want to see tonight, and that's the game that the NCAA has to beg for tonight.
Well, I'd like it a little more exciting when it comes to the score line, but yeah, you're right.
I think it could be very
That
high scoring
ending.
for both.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the bowl season to be as bad as it has been, you know, there were sponsors I had never heard of. The games were not close. They were not entertaining. And the college football playoff to be on New Year's Eve, I really pray to God the NCAA never makes that same mistake again.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's the NCAA or ESPN. I believe the NCAA actually is the one who owes ESPN $20 million.
Yes.
Because of how bad the ratings were. And Colin Cowherd said this again. I'm going to reference him for the rest of my life because he's just a radio god, I guess. He made a good point saying New Year's Eve is all about getting off the couch. New Year's Day is all about getting on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're absolutely right.
next year, you would hope that the college football playoff will be on New Year's Day. If that's the case, it's going to get more viewers. It did last year. Florida State, Oregon, you know, up until the fourth quarter, it was a classic. Alabama's
Classic.
Well, Winston Mariota.
That wasn't close.
I said up till the fourth quarter.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry. You said Florida State. I thought you said Ohio State. I was going to
Yeah.
say.
No,
I'm
Ohio
sorry.
State.
Wow.
Ohio State, Alabama. I thought was
Lost
a
you
good
there.
game, but tonight needs to be a classic. The game will be at the University of Phoenix Stadium in Arizona.
It's a great site for the game.
It's a great site.
They've played a lot of good ones there. Florida, Auburn, and Oregon was there. There's been some good matchups there. So.
Absolutely. And Clemson, they got here. They defeated Oklahoma 37-17 in the Orange Bowl, but behind Deshaun Watson's 187-yard passing and 145-yard rushing performance in the Orange Bowl. Alabama wiped the floor with Michigan State 38-0. They made them feel like they didn't even belong in the football playoff. 21-point third quarter by Alabama. This game features a team who has won 3 national championships in, I believe, 7 years. They look for their 4th tonight. Clemson has not won a title since 81. This is the matchup you want here because this is almost like that dream matchup. It's literally the present, or it's the past versus the present.
Right.
Who's going to prevail here?
It's kind of like little brother versus the Empire. You know, I mean, to make a Star Wars reference, it is the rebels against the Empire, and Clemson's got a great team. And I don't mean to put them down. Actually, I think they have a very good chance to compete tonight. I don't know if they're going to win, but I think they have a great chance to compete. Deshaun Watson is a fantastic player. I really like, Wayne Gallman at running back. They have a lot of pieces that can really play. So, to me, if if they can go out there and make it close and keep it close till the end, they're going to have a chance to win the game. But it's going to come down to executing the way they did in the second half against Oklahoma, because the way they were in the first half, where they were sloppy, penalties, turnovers, not good enough.
Yeah, the way they were in the first half in the Orange Bowl is not going to win you the game tonight. And Alabama's that type of team where if Clemson does come out like the first half of the Orange Bowl, they're not going to have a chance to come back because it's going to be 30-0 by the end of the half.
Yeah.
So for Clemson to win this game, they've got to be perfect on all sides. Defense, offense, special teams. They have to limit the penalties tonight because, again, in the Orange Bowl, they weren't very good with that. You know, despite winning 37-17 over a very good Oklahoma team. But again, the secondary showed they were very weak at the end of that game. Deshaun Watson ran all over them by himself. So for Clemson to win this game tonight, limit the penalties. Your defense has to be sharp, which they can be. They have the tools and have what it takes to stay in this game and even win this game.
Yes.
Again, I got that
more than enough talent.
More than enough talent.
Mackenzie Alexander at corner, Gallman, Watson.
I have that bad feeling with the experience of Nick Saban of Alabama. Just the presence of Alabama being in a national championship gives you that mindset to not bet for Clemson. You know, bet against Clemson. But Clemson has all the tools here to win this game, but
yes.
they all have to come out on the table tonight. One mistake, it's over.
Absolutely.
It's over.
Absolutely.
So for them to win this game, Watson has to play like he did in the Orange Bowl. 187 yards passing and a touchdown, 145 yards rushing. Defense has to step up like they did in the second half. And again, the penalties, that's going to be the entire talk of the town tonight. Guys like Wayne Gallman has to step up in the backfield. The O-line has to keep the Alabama defense away from the pocket. And most importantly, and I wrote this down big, do not get intimidated by Nick Saban.
No, by the gravity of the game. I don't think Clemson will. They played Notre Dame. They played Florida State when they were in the top 10. Notre Dame when they were in the top 10. North Carolina in the ACC championship game, and they weren't afraid of the moment in the playoff game. Did you get the Tom Coughlin update?
Yes, I did.
The 49ers got to interview him too.
That's surprising.
Yeah, he's going to get a chance here at a couple jobs.
Yep, he's. You know what? One thing I can say, I do think we will see him somewhere in 2016.
Yes. At this point, he's getting so many interviews, and he said he was going to consider coaching. So yes, I agree.
I didn't think we would see him this soon. I thought maybe a couple more years. I thought he'd take time off, see, be with his family, all that fun stuff. But you know what? He's getting a lot of interviews. 49ers. Browns, I heard, showed some interest, but I don't know if they got requests for an interview yet. Eagles, they just talked to him. We don't know how that went. He's going to coach somewhere next year. We know that.
Right.
We don't know where yet. But staying on tonight for a little bit, Alabama is that team. They have the experience factor, the 3 national championships in 7 years. And Clemson, of course, they're just trying to win their first title in 35.
Yes.
So this is the matchup you want to see. And you know what? Any other fan who just wants to see the underdog win, you're all Clemson tonight. But if you're an Alabama fan, and again, you know what? It's Alabama. They've got the tools to win this thing too. I think they're the favorite. Vegas thinks they're the favorite by like 6 points. Do not take this Clemson team lightly. Because, and on another side, one mistake on the Alabama side, and it's over for them too. That's the game that we're looking at tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Bama, the key for them is to run the ball as well as they have all season with Derrick Henry. I don't know if Jacob Coker can do what he did against Clemson, particularly with Shaq Lawson playing.
And Coker had a cotton ball to remember. He destroyed Michigan State, but the question is he's got to have a repeat performance tonight to even beat Clemson tonight. Everybody on Alabama has to be ready on all sides of the ball. Again, same thing with Clemson.
Well, I don't think that's going to be an issue with them, though.
Yeah.
Saban does not. If they lose, it will not be blown out, all right? They will lose.
No, they will lose by 3.
Close defense, like 24-20, something like that.
Right.
They're not going to get blown out. That's not how they prepare.
That's not Nick Saban's team.
They will come ready to play. It's just Clemson's going to have to up the intensity level and bring it. And I don't think that's going to be a problem either because Dabo Swinney, in case you haven't seen this man in an interview, he is a ball of energy. He gets a lot out of his team. He's a fan. Listen, he has come full circle as a coach, okay? He started out as a really good recruiter that rebuilt the program with guys like Dwayne Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Martavis Bryant, Sammy Watkins, Taj Boyd. He fixed them, right? He fixed the program as a whole. And now he's at the point where he's taking the talent and winning the games, right? Because in years past, they had the Orange Bowl against West Virginia where they lost 70-33 to Geno Smith in West Virginia. I didn't think Geno Smith was possible to do that, but fair enough. They got blown out in a couple other big games, both at home and away. Now they, I believe 2 years ago they beat Ohio State in the Orange Bowl, which was a big win, set some momentum in going forward. And then last year, narrowly missed out on a playoff spot. I want to say they went 10-2.
Yeah.
And they won their bowl game again. So they've taken steps forward every single year. And I think if Dabo Swinney can win this championship, he's going to be one of the best coaches in the country, hands down.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Just to beat a powerhouse like Alabama, the experience of Nick Saban, and you know what it is too. And a lot of these teams, it's like, oh, when these seniors or something like that graduate, these seniors, these juniors are gone. Their franchise is done until they can get new recruits. I'll tell you something. Alabama's never done.
No. They don't rebuild. They reload.
They reload.
They've had
I like that.
a few years where they've taken a sideways step, like where they go 9-3, but they go to the Sugar Bowl and win that too because they're that good. But Saban,
They're always in something.
will always have this team prepared and ready to win.
Like the year when they lost to Auburn in Iron Bowl, they had something. What was that? A Sugar Bowl year for them too?
Yeah, they lost to Oklahoma that in that Sugar Bowl, but I mean they're every year on the national stage because they recruit so well and they're so well coached.
Yeah, and it's like if you're a top high school recruit, you're a senior in high school, and you see Nick Saban in an Alabama hat somewhere down the field, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what a lot of those guys feel like. Holy crap, Nick Saban is at my game right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I want to go to Alabama now. I want to play for a national championship team, and that is basically it's a psychological thing. That's what recruiting is. It's psychological sometimes.
Yes.
And Alabama easily better than any team in the country with that, at least on a national championship standpoint. But you're going off on this game tonight. Alabama obviously the favorite, and I think Vegas has the line like 5 or 4, something like that. But Clemson, if you think they're gonna lay down, if you think they're just gonna lay down and take it, that's not gonna happen tonight.
No, I think they will fight to stay in this game as long as they can.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We're gonna take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will get into our NFL divisional preview and picks. We will save our Clemson-Alabama pick for the very end of the show because that game is tonight. So we will have all of that at the other side of the break. 27 minutes past the hour. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty back after this on SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. And 36 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour, you're tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, Juan Conla over my shoulder. And now it is time for our NFL divisional round picks and preview. And, of course, we will preview the national championship between Clemson and Alabama. Make our picks.
We'll give scores for all
At the
these two.
very
We're
end.
going fully in depth here, folks.
Absolutely. So we will start with the first game, 4:30 on Saturday. It is the Kansas City Chiefs riding high in their 30-0 win on a team that probably shouldn't have been respected in the playoffs at all. Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots. It is number 5 versus number 2. Nick, who do you got on Saturday?
I'm going to go with New England. They're at home. They're always good in Foxborough in the postseason. Usually their first playoff game of the year usually has a few hiccups, a couple interceptions by Brady or something like that, but they always overcome it. The injuries are the big key for the Pats, but I think that they'll have enough of their guys back and ready to go for this game after the bye to go out and get the win. So with Macklin gone, I don't know if the Chiefs have enough firepower offensively, so I will take the Patriots at home in Foxborough 30-17.
Okay. I am going to go with New England as well. And like we said before, New England is going to be as healthy as they've been all year. Obviously, without their guys who were going to be out for the year. Edelman is expected to be back. Brady's expected to be at 100% or maybe close to it. We don't know the status on Jeremy Macklin. New England, one of the best teams easily in the NFL. We don't know how that rushing attack is going to be. The pass rushing, I believe, is going to take Alex Smith out of this game early. It can be close if the Kansas City
Jamie
defense
Collins
sticks
is the guy to watch.
Absolutely. I'm going to take New England by a score of 21-10. So I expect to be a little closer. I expect them to win by 11.
I can see that.
So the next game we will preview Seattle at Carolina. This, I believe, is on Sunday at 1. Nick, who do you got?
I have not been high on the Panthers really all year. I respect their 15-1 record. They've had a great season. Cam Newton's played well, at times very well. Their receiving core is nothing special, though, and I think that is a potential Achilles heel here is Cam Newton's inability to make all the throws accurately, and their subpar receiving core, to me, puts them behind the eight ball against the Seahawks. Carolina's defense is the strength of the team. Pass rush is great. Front seven's good against the run. So that could create some problems because the Seahawks haven't run the ball well since Marshawn Lynch went out and then Rawls went out. That ruined it completely.
Right.
Lynch is a possibility to play in this game, so that could change things for them from an offensive standpoint. But I'm still going to go with Seattle, with or without him. Their experience factor, their knowledge of how to play in these big games, for me, puts them over the top. Their defense can handle these receivers. I know they lost to Carolina the first time round. I want to say 33-28. Their secondary had some trouble, but I think the second time round they come better prepared. They come ready to win, and they play a lot better and a lot harder. And Russell Wilson's been playing very well of late, especially now that the weather is not going to be so terrible like it was in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So I will go with the Seahawks in this one, 20-17.
Okay, so close to one. I
think they shut down that offense.
I take Seattle as well. I give Carolina all the credit in the world. A 15-1 season, that is phenomenal. But, like you said, I believe they beat 6 teams who didn't even make it to the playoffs. Which includes
not by much in each of those games. The
much.
margin of victory was not that great.
The New Orleans victory, which I believe was by 3 points in overtime, really sealed my fate.
They needed
for this
overtime
team.
Against the Colts. They needed overtime against... I think they had 3 overtime games, and the Giant game, they were up 35-7, made some mistakes there.
And win 38-35.
Listen, obviously, a win is a win is a win. We're not trying to diminish the wins,
absolutely.
But I think there's more flaws in this team than people want to let on. I think the flaws can be exposed.
A lot of people are like, oh my God, Carolina 15-1, how can they lose? Prime example, 2011 Green Bay Packers.
There were some things wrong there, too.
There were some things wrong. They got the bye 15-1. The rest, I'm not going to blame the rest on it because to me the Giants were the better team going in anyway. At least at the time.
I wouldn't say the better team, but
they
I would
got red
say
hot at the right time.
The strengths of the Giants, right, was their defense and their pass rush. Mm-hmm. And the weaknesses of that Green Bay team was the offensive line was so-so, and their secondary wasn't great, and their pass rush was okay.
Yeah.
So Eli Manning could make the big play and throw the ball downfield, and they could get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And I think Carolina, offensive line is good, but for me, the receiving core isn't great. And the Seahawks let Greg Olsen burn them the last time out. I can guarantee you they will be prepared for him this time.
Absolutely.
They have Jeremy Lane healthy. He made a great impact yesterday, so that's what I think is the big thing. The strength
Moral
plays
of the
into the
story,
weakness.
I'm going to take Seattle in this game. I'm going to take them close. I'm going to say 30-27.
That many points, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a defensive struggle, but I could see that.
We'll see.
Who knows?
We will absolutely see. Now we got Green Bay at Arizona. This is on Saturday night on NBC, so we have to hear Chris Collinsworth again.
Al.
And I like Al.
I love Al, but I'm just quoting Collinsworth. Everything ends in Al.
I was about to say, leave Al out of this.
No, I love Al. Al's a legend.
I'll start with this one. I'm going to take Arizona comfortably in this one. To me, Arizona is the team to beat in the NFC. Green Bay got the luck of the draw by losing at Lambeau to get Washington. And for a first half, we thought it wasn't going to be their night either. So with Green Bay going in this game, they still have a lot of problems. Their O-line is still struggling. They still got a lot of guys hurt. Aaron Rodgers has still been struggling. He found his way in the third quarter yesterday, but before that, he was struggling. He went 1 for 8 on his first 4 possessions, which included getting a safety in the first quarter. So for this is the year for Arizona, I think. I thought it was last year they were going to play in their place at the Super Bowl. Injuries got to them. This year, I see nothing holding them back. I see Arizona over Green Bay. I'm going to say... I never really thought of a score here. I'm going to say 33-10.
Okay, then. Arizona took it to the Packers a few weeks ago in Arizona. That was without the Honey Badger for most of the game. And
Honey Badger don't care.
Exactly, he don't care. He's a fantastic player, and it's a big loss.
I'm
not sure Kirk's liking today, but regardless of
No,
Kirk
he does
Cousins,
not like
he's
today
gone.
at all.
But they got after Aaron Rodgers. The pass rush got home. The offensive line had all kinds of trouble against the Cardinals. The Cardinals' passing attack lit up the Green Bay defense. David Johnson was fantastic. He's been fantastic. And now it sounds like Chris Johnson's coming back.
They made the Green Bay defense look like they didn't even know what they were supposed to do.
So now
on
they're
the
going
field.
to have the three-headed monster again of Ellington, Johnson, and Johnson. Sounds like a law firm, but
Good God.
I think the Cardinals will win this game. Aaron Rodgers found his way, like you said, and Eddie Lacy played better, but I don't think they can do this again. Not that I don't really think Washington is anything special, anything to write home about, so I don't want to read too much into the win. I will say the Cardinals beat them 35-14 in the desert to move on, and then they would host the NFC Championship game. If our predictions hold true, they would host Seattle in their building.
And that's what my pool is, too. And
Yes.
finally, this is the biggest question mark of the weekend. This is Sunday at 4:40. It is the Steelers at the Broncos. I want to start off with this.
All comes down to health. Go ahead,
It's
sir.
all going to come down to health. It's all going to come down to this. And my dad said this the other day, and he's right. The Denver defense, we all know, is better than the Pittsburgh defense. But is the Denver offense better than the Pittsburgh defense?
Well,
That's the question.
Better than the Pittsburgh offense, you mean?
No, better than the Pittsburgh defense. Can the Denver offense
make
put
a
up
play.
points against the Pittsburgh
Right.
defense? That's my point. I know
Yeah.
I didn't really say it makes much sense. But
No,
that's
no,
my
it's okay.
point.
I just thought you were comparing both units. It's
No,
fine.
no.
Yeah.
Because we know that the Pittsburgh offense is
Dynamic.
not 100%. It's dynamic, but it's not 100% right now. As of now, Big Ben is going to look like he did in that last drive.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Brown, we don't know about yet. He's still on concussion protocol. But on the Denver side, and I've been saying this for weeks, can Peyton Manning win this game when he hasn't played all year? To me, he's rusty. To me, it's all going to come down to the rushing attack, and that is all going to come down to, is the Steelers' defense as good as they say they are? This is going to be, to me, the closest game of the playoffs this year. But if I'm taking anybody right now, I am taking the upset of the year, and I'm taking the Steelers.
Wow.
Very close, very low scoring, 17-14.
I've been fighting myself over this game since we figured out the matchup. I don't know how much of the Steelers, how much of Big Ben the Steelers will have. If they can get, I would say, 50% of Roethlisberger, if they can get him close to what he was on that last possession, they have a chance. To me, the biggest factor in this game is that D'Angelo Williams is back. It sounds like he will play this week.
Which helps the rushing attack
It
against
helps
the Denver
the rushing
defense.
attack. And I thought Jordan Tobin and Fitzgerald Toussaint weren't bad in relief of him. So they're going to have to run the ball a lot, I think, to back off the pass rush. Denver's defense is fantastic. I think Antonio Brown, as long as he's cleared by a doctor, will play. I don't know how good a shape he's in, but I think he plays.
If the doctor says, I recommend rest, but you can play, he's going to be on the field.
He's going to play,
He's
right.
going to be on the field.
So I don't know what the deal will be with him and the injury, but we'll have to see as we go. But I think the Steelers have a chance in this game. Their defense is going to have to play like they did against against the run, like they did this past week against Cincinnati. The front seven was great. Bud Dupree had a nice game. Shazier. The secondary is the question mark, but I don't know if Peyton can throw the ball down the field. God, this is difficult. I'm going to go with you, Sean. 20-17, Pittsburgh.
You know what? And this is a close one. And you know what? Ever since we saw Big Ben go down and we saw him in that final drive, I really didn't know what to think of this game. I did my pool early.
I mean, a big part of it is I think C.J. Anderson's had a bad year. He only played well, I would say, twice out of 16 games. So can I trust him to go out there and win this game
Absolutely.
and help Peyton? I don't see it. And I mean, is Brock coming in off the bench rusty?
And despite Pittsburgh not coming in at 100%, to me, the big story still is Peyton Manning rusty? And to me, if that's the case, Peyton Manning is not going to play well. Everyone's like, oh, Peyton played well against San Diego. No, he didn't. He went 5 for 9. And he couldn't throw downfield.
They were check downs.
And he couldn't throw downfield. That's what really caused San Diego to crumble was the psychological factor of Peyton Manning being on the field. Peyton Manning couldn't throw downfield against the Chargers. He was terrible. No, he wasn't terrible, but he was 5 for 9. He came in the third quarter. It was the psychological standpoint of Peyton coming on the field, which is what cost San Diego the game. That will not happen to Pittsburgh on Sunday. Do not start with that. But again, when we found out Pittsburgh was coming in not 100%, this to me had to have been the biggest question mark of the weekend. But to me, Pittsburgh, I feel, is still the favorite off of that. And they get D'Angelo Williams back, so the rushing attack should go against the defense well. If the Denver defense has any mishaps, this thing is over. Because that is the reason that the Broncos still have a shot in this. So before we take a break, we will now save our final pick, best for last, tonight. the 2016 College Football National Championship at the University of Phoenix Stadium. It is number 1 Clemson and number 2 Alabama. Nick, who do you got winning the gold tonight?
I would really love to see Dabo Swinney and Clemson get this done. It would be such an awesome story. I think it would be, his story and career coming full circle as the head coach. Deshaun Watson seems like a great guy, and this team really, they play hard and they play a fun style of football. And having said all that, and how, I guess I would say bored or tired I am of Alabama winning it all, I can't pick against them.
Yeah.
They're too good, too prepared, always ready to play in these big games. So I have Alabama 33-17 tonight at the University of Phoenix Stadium with another national championship.
Let me tell you something. If there's a stat or any analysis out there or any analyst who says Alabama is an underdog, Nick Saban has that as a fuel of fire to him. So for him to look at the ESPN bottom line and see number 2 Alabama versus number 1 Clemson, that sets him off as well.
I think what sets them off in particular is that Dabo Swinney spent the week saying, well, no one gives us a chance, I don't know why. I think Alabama looks at it as like, yeah, you don't deserve a chance.
Yeah, they're like, no, you don't have a chance in this game.
Right.
And that's the kind of coach Nick Saban is. He was like that at LSU. He tried to be like that at Miami when he went to the NFL. And he came to Alabama, and he was like that again because he likes that.
Exactly.
I would love to see Clemson win. I'm one of those people who loves to see the underdog have a shot. For example, I thought Auburn was the underdog against Florida State. Man, did I want to see Auburn win that national championship. But, again, like you said, how can you not pick for Alabama tonight? Just offensively, defensively, Derrick Henry in the backfield, he needs to have more yards tonight. He put up the touchdowns in the Cotton Bowl, but he did not put up the yards. He has to do that tonight. Kruger with the Cotton Bowl of a lifetime. He has to have a repeat performance tonight. And again, just offensively, defensively, special teams, this team was born for a national championship this year. I think they're going to get it tonight. I expect Clemson to put up a fight, but at the end of the day, I expect Alabama to walk away with the trophy 33-10.
I could see that.
Yep. Now, again, don't get me wrong, and like we said before, the NCAA has to hope for a classic tonight. And what we just predicted, the NCAA is going to have a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
So we'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will wrap things up. Final thoughts on SMC Sports when we return. 973-655-4256. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty after this. All right, 54 minutes past the 3 o'clock hour. You're tuned into SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. Sean McChesney and Nick Flaherty. We're also on WMSCRadio.com and on the Live 365 app. So, Nick, we close the show here. We have divisional playoff weekend starting on Saturday, the national championship tonight. Rangers are in action tonight. Knicks in action tomorrow night. The Nets suck. So just give me your thoughts on everything that we've done today. We have a great divisional playoff coming up next weekend. And again, really, what we just left off on, Pittsburgh, Denver, the biggest question mark of the weekend.
There's a lot of, wide open games, and I think matchups that can go either way in this AFC, NFC, side of the bracket, and that Carolina has gone 15-1, but to me they don't look that convincing, and
No.
Seattle can give them fits. So you don't really know how to lean that way because, absolutely, Carolina's 15-1. You could definitely pick them out of respect at home, which is fair enough. I understand that selection. Kansas City, what's crazy to me is I'm not sure if we've had a wild card or divisional round or championship weekend or even a Super Bowl that hinges so much on the health of the teams. And that if the Steelers can get 50 to 70% of their guys to of themselves to play at a high level, then I think they have a chance to go out and win if they can get 50% of Big Ben, because 50% of Big Ben is better than 100% of a lot of guys. And the same can be said for Antonio Brown.
I bet 50% of Big Ben is probably going to be better than maybe 75% of Peyton Manning.
Yeah, exactly. That is the thing. So I don't know how to feel about this game. It's really a funny game.
It's a coin flip.
Yeah, like I said, I sat here and mulled this thing over for quite a bit.
Because
So-
you know what? This is one of those games where, like my score prediction, I can see 17-14 Pittsburgh. I
Right.
can see 17-14 Denver. I could see 40-3 Denver. I really don't know how this game is going to go. We have to wait until Sunday to find out. This is going to be the one you want to see.
So much of this game hinges on the health of the team out there.
Yep. Again, this is the one that you want to see. You got Green Bay, Arizona, which to me is not really much of a contest for Green Bay. I'm sorry, for Arizona, if I even said that right. I expect Arizona to walk over this comfortably. You look at Week 16, all Arizona's guys were in. Carson Palmer made that Green Bay defense look like they didn't know what they were doing. Aaron Rodgers did not play well. The O-line fell apart. They collapsed in the pocket. It did not look good, and I expect the same in Arizona. Same setting. 3 weeks later, I expect the same thing.
I mean, it's hard to beat a team twice, but I don't think you win. I mean, to me, it's a mismatch.
Yeah.
Talent-wise, that's my biggest thing.
Absolutely. You got Carolina hosting Seattle, which again could be another coin flip game, but to me, I'm more convinced on the Seattle side of things. Seattle has played very well at the end of the year. The weather will be not just their favor, Carolina's favor as well, because it is slightly warmer in North Carolina. But you know what? Even a 29-degree day for Russell Wilson, he would probably feel like it's 50 degrees.
Absolutely.
After what he just went through in Minnesota
Warm
and
compared
came
to
out
that.
alive. Yeah. Now, believe me, if I was in that crowd yesterday and came back to 35 degrees here in New Jersey, I'd probably be wearing shorts.
Yes.
Probably
Yes.
be wearing shorts. That's how cold it was yesterday. And you know what? It didn't look too cold. We also weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the moral of the story. But bottom line, I'm more convinced on Seattle's side. Russell Wilson has proved he can play without a running game and win. We expect Lynch back this week. But again, after what we
expect
saw
him
last
to play
week,
this week too.
Christian Michael would have been a lot better last night, yesterday afternoon, if he had had more notice and was able to take more first-team reps at practice.
He also would have been better if he wasn't Kristen Michael.
That's
Just
all.
saying,
No,
'cause
that's
he's
also
pretty
true.
awful.
Well, it also didn't help with Lynch telling Pete Carroll an hour before the flight, hey, I'm not going.
Yeah.
After he took all the first-team reps at practice.
Yeah.
So, to me, that was a very selfish move on his part, and he better make up for it this week. But, again, to me, they really don't need the rushing attack because they proved they can win without it. Doug Baldwin has had an unbelievable season. Lockett has had a great season, and Russell Wilson has proved he can be a dynamic quarterback if he has to be. I expect the same in Carolina. You're right. Carolina does not look like a convincing 15-1 dominant team who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I don't expect them to come out of this alive. But again, it could be another coin flip, but to me, Seattle looks like the better team on paper.
Agreed.
And then finally, we have Kansas City at New England, which could go either way, but Kansas City is
A
on.
lot of it hinges on Macklin
Exactly.
and the Patriots' health.
A lot of it is on Macklin because, Kelsey is not going to be able to handle this on his own.
Exactly.
We've seen it before.
Albert Wilson doesn't seem like he's enough.
Exactly. And you know what? Give Kansas City credit. They won their first postseason game in 30 years. But
Yeah.
to me, it comes to a screeching halt on
Well,
Saturday.
since they have Brian Hoyer on their team, it really helped.
Yeah, that's also that's why I just said I think
No,
that's-
they deserve the credit. I'm just saying.
they deserve it. Personally, I think they were going to win that game anyway.
Yes, I agree. I
what?
had them in that game.
It was a good offense and a better defense
Right.
versus a great defense and a somewhat okay offense. To me, I had Kansas City winning anyway.
I mean, to me, the Chiefs, yes, I thought the Texans defense played well, but the Chiefs were sloppy.
very.
So if they can clean it up, they're going to be in this game.
If they
Instead
weren't,
of kind of making a big play.
yeah, if they weren't sloppy, they would have been up 30-0 at the half. They wouldn't have won 30-0.
Yeah.
But moral of the story, I expect a great divisional playoff weekend, national championship tonight. You can only hope for a classic between Clemson and Alabama because, again, the NCAA has no choice here. NHL, NBA, still going strong. Knicks are on tomorrow. Rangers tonight at the Garden. Knicks tomorrow at the Garden. Both of them, I think, against Boston, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bruins and then Celtics. For the
Interesting.
Yes, and then the Nets on Wednesday at the Barclays Center.
Because they like that.
Exactly.
Not even really a
Knicks
visiting-
fans like it.
Not even really a visiting game there. As we at the top of the 4 o'clock hour on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. That's all for us this week. Next week, we will be back for our last winter edition of the show, but we will be on every Monday in the spring as well, so nothing's going to change every Monday 1 to 4.
Nothing for you.
Yeah, Nick, this will be your last edition on SMC Sports with us.
Yes, next Monday, unfortunately, will be my last, for a while,
For a
last
while.
SMC Sports,
Of
but that's
course.
okay. You can Find me on Nick's Picks.
Yes, Nick's Picks.
Sunday 1 to 4.
Nick's Picks is official. Congratulations, Nick.
Thank you. Without your training, sir, it wouldn't be possible.
Well, you can thank your grandpapa DJ as well for
Thanks to
that.
Grandpapa
Mr.
DJ Craig
Gorbanoff.
Gorbanoff. If you're out there listening, thank you as well. You trained him well enough to then train me well
And your
enough.
great-grandbaby DJ Silas Kazangwa, if he's listening.
Sure, why not? We'll throw Silas in there. That's fair enough. But no, I'm excited, looking forward to it. Hope if you get the chance, listen in, join in. Of course, Sean, you're always welcome to be a guest on my show as you have me.
If
on
I'm
yours,
able to
so.
be on, I will be there, my friend.
Fantastic.
And so next week we will recap the divisional round. We will preview the conference championships. I'm sure you'll also preview it on your first show as well, the conference championships.
Yeah, well, that's
actually,
the bye
yours will be
week.
happening live, actually.
Bye week in between, and I will be on Super Bowl Sunday. That is the plan.
Yes.
To be on Super Bowl Sunday, so we'll have
Who wouldn't want to be?
a full 3-hour gauntlet of what is to come in the big game. So
I mean, I wouldn't try that. We tried that last year. It really didn't work out that well.
prepare yourself, everyone. We're going to get it done.
You think you could do it?
Absolutely.
All right. Well,
I will take the RG3 approach.
Listen,
and leave you a nice
all
note.
I'm saying is me, Alex, Craig, and Sean tried to do it last year, and we ended up on the Puppy Bowl by like 11 o'clock in the morning. It was hard.
Yeah.
But I expect nonetheless, my friend, I think you could do it. So that's all for us this week. We'll be back on next week to preview the conference championships, recap the national championship between Clemson and Alabama, which is tonight. We will also be recapping the divisional round, and hopefully I will still be in my NFL playoff pool, but nonetheless, Sean Martin is out, which is awesome.
Wow.
Well, he was a defending champ, so
I
you
know,
want to knock
but
him
the
out first.
Schadenfreude is real.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's all for us. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty on SMC Sports on 90.3 FM, online at WMSCradio.com, and on the Live 365 app. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week at 1. Take care.